Good evening, everyone. Call to order the July 9th meeting of the El Segundo Planning Commission. Welcome. Can we start with a roll call, please?
Sure thing. Commissioner Christian? Present. Commissioner McCaverty?
Present.
Commissioner Taylor?
Here.
Commissioner Inga?
Here.
And Chair Magai.
Here.
We have quorum, 5.
And up next, as always, you do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we want to open public communication on items that are not on the agenda. Did we get any speaker cards for non-agendized items?
Not on anything that's not on the agenda, though I will take this opportunity to at least inform the public that if they wish to speak on an item that is on the agenda, we do have speaker cards up at the front. Please fill those in and find a staff member. You can submit that here, and we'll call you at the appropriate time when you're designated to speak.
Okay, then I will close public communications. The first item is the consent calendar. The item is to approve the June 25th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I present a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on June 25th.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion to approve. Commissioner Christian?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner McCaverty?
I did watch the meeting online even though I wasn't here, so aye.
Vice Chair Inga?
Aye.
Chair Magai?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the first public hearing we have is environmental assessment number EA 1414 and administrative determination AD 2601 relating to a proposed electric vehicle maintenance and customer service facility use in the corporate office zone. This is a continued item from the June 25th meeting, and as I understand it, the item is continued, but technically we're continuing the commission deliberation. So we're not going to have a presentation, and we're not going to open it to public comments. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'll just mention that it's up to the pleasure of the commission. If there might be people here that haven't spoken on the item that you might want to hear from, but if the commission wants to just deliberate, that's okay as well.
Okay, I think, and there's no presentation.
At this time, there's no separate presentation than the one that was made 2 weeks ago. And just to confirm, I know Commissioner McCaverty had just mentioned it, but I did want to confirm that you watched the entirety of the presentation, public comment, and continuation of the item from 2 weeks ago.
Not only did I watch the whole thing, I watched half of it live, and then I went back to the beginning and watched the whole thing through again. So I've watched it officially 1.5 times. I'm prepared to, state whatever I think should happen here. I don't know if there's any additional information. I did not see anything additional in the packet.
So with that, Chair, there's not a separate presentation to be made, although during commission deliberation, staff's here to answer any questions that you might have.
And Eduardo, can we confirm, have we received any speaker cards for that item?
We have received 2 speaker cards on the continued matter.
Okay.
Okay, since it's just 2, why don't we go ahead and open up public comment for now? Because we have a lot of people here, I think, can we limit their comments to 2 minutes? And will you be calling the names of the speakers?
So we have the applicant representative, Emily Murray, and Chris Shane as well.
Thank you. Emily Murray, representative for the applicant. I submitted a PowerPoint and materials to the commissioners and to staff on Wednesday morning. I understand you'd like to keep the presentation short. I'd ask for the opportunity to review my presentation, or I can hit my highlights for you all.
Go ahead and hit your highlights.
Have you had a chance to review that material?
I have, yes.
So I did want to point out in particular the prior approval of the Rivian project, which was done by a letter of approval with a specific note that due to the differing natures of electric vehicles and internal combustion vehicles, the inclusion of vehicle repair is not subject to the limitation that automobile repair shops are generally held to in the El Segundo Municipal Code. Commissioner Christian mentioned at the last hearing that he appreciates consistency. I know we appreciate consistency too. We would like to see the Tesla facility be handled in the same way as the Rivian facility was. The use is identical. The impacts from our facility are actually less impactful because all of the parking is accommodated on site. I'd also like to direct your attention to the before and after photos that we included in our packet showing the facility, the existing facility from PCH with the tall abandoned building and looking quite destitute. The chair had mentioned a desire to have vibrancy and walkability at this location, and I would encourage you to review the schematics that we've shown and the improvement that you would experience at this site with this use. Finally, I did also want to point out that there is precedent for a site-specific administrative determination. We provided that example, or cited to that example in our presentation materials. Finally, there was some, I think, concern at the last meeting over whether the question that the commissioners were being asked to address was, does this fit in a bucket of an existing use? That's not the question. The question is it similar in character? Is it similar in nature? Is it compatible with the existing uses? And is it consistent with the code? And I've addressed each of those items in my presentation, but I would submit that it is all of those things. The proposed Tesla use is similar in character to the existing uses, the by right uses. It is similar in nature. It is
Excuse me, Chair,
consistent.
2 minutes are up.
2 minutes are up. Okay, I appreciate that, thank you. And it's consistent with the code directives to remove blight in a blighted region and encourage walkability, vibrancy, and it's an existing use. So I would, to the extent that you felt like you were being asked to go out on a limb, to do something without precedent in the city of El Segundo, this is a use that's been up and running for 6 years. It's the identical use that we are proposing at this location, and I think it's going to be a really terrific asset for the city. So we appreciate your time and your consideration.
Hi, Chris Shane. Thank you very much for opening for public comment. Our last meeting, there were some questions on what was being voted on and why, and I wanted to break this down just from a business standpoint as far as I could. So what are we actually voting on? Progress over stagnation, rejuvenation over blight, positive tax revenue over a continued drain on city services and the city budget. So when someone comes into the city today on PCH and the entry into the city, they see a blighted building. So when they come here to invest money, move their family here, open a business, et cetera, that's what they see. They see a 10-story office building that's boarded up across the street. They see an old restaurant with weeds growing in the parking lot, and that's the entry into the city. This is the opportunity to fix a major eyesore at the entry to the city of El Segundo. It's also your opportunity to fix an access issue that city staff has been working on for a lengthy period of time. It is the first project that can say on PCH at this location that delivers not only access but continuity of development between PCH and the Mariposa corridor. I know that was a big deal for you guys. We've spent over a year assembling the parcels and coordinating with different owners, including the Mariposa ownership representative tonight, and they want to see this happen. They have owned that property for 80+ years, and they are multi-generational El Segundo family, and they are very supportive of this. The first time that they've been supportive of a project working with their parcel ever. So the do-nothing option, in our opinion, is to keep the office building there or continue to support the development agreement that the city currently has on the property. The vacancy rate in the city of El Segundo for Class A and B office is 32.5%. So there's not going to be an office building built there. It's not going to happen. It's going to stay as an empty office building with boarded up windows. So it does not preserve a viable office future. It preserves a blighted group of buildings and an empty lot. So what this project delivers, 100-plus jobs for residents to benefit from, revitalization and fresh energy for the area, drawing new customers and surrounding restaurants and businesses, and new revenue streams, new sales tax revenue, new property tax revenue. So the question,
Chair, 2 minutes are up.
30 seconds? Thank you. So the question, as Ms. Murray just explained, is you have the authority and the legal ability to approve the AUD for this project. The blight is removed. The city gains jobs, fresh energy, and revenue. The only question is whether we choose progress tonight. And I'll leave you with this, because I looked on the city's website under the business section, and it says, and I quote, El Segundo is the city that makes its business to help yours. We partner with you for success. Our experienced staff welcomes you with open arms, and we look forward to working with you for many years to come. Well, the feeling is mutual, and we look forward to working with the city for many years to come as well. And I am sure the intent is to not treat Tesla differently than you have treated Rivian. And tonight, you can make that clear and welcome Tesla with open arms. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And with that, I will close public comment on this item and open it to, to commissioner comments or questions to staff. And I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners to begin.
I want to ask Mr. Allen, I just heard that the occupancy rate is 35%. Can you confirm that in the commercial office building area? What is the rate approximately?
Yeah, as far as I know, the CoStar report published in May of 2026, so just a little bit over a month ago, quoted a 15% vacancy rate in the city of El Segundo. 15%. Yeah. Although, it fluctuates, but it currently sits at 15% as of May, according to CoStar.
Yeah, I wasn't here for the July 25th meeting, or June 25th meeting, so I do appreciate you putting it over for my take. I do think my legal expertise comes in handy on something like this, because I don't think we're being asked to determine if we like a project or we don't like a project. I think we're being asked to determine whether or not the director's findings should be upheld or not. And what I will say about both items on tonight's calendar is that both of these items could fundamentally change the landscape east of PCH for our city. We have a general plan update that's going on that the city's invested a lot of money into, and we're a quasi-judicial branch. I don't feel that it is our job to fundamentally change the city the way this particular item's asking us to. And so when I look at what our director, Michael Allen, put together in response to this AD, he did not find that any of the three uses were met here. And I will just, I think Chair Magai is far more articulate than I am in that he just kept saying during the last meeting, he wasn't seeing it, how it fit in. I also think Commissioner Christian made an excellent point at the last meeting that there was another avenue in order for this to happen, and that was through a zone amendment, and that was not done. That was, in my understanding, that was told to the applicant that that was the way to go, that if you went the AD route, which is what they ended up doing, that the director was not going to be able to make the findings consistent with that. So I think with those two things, there should have been a zoning amendment. That wasn't done. So now it's here and our director's saying it doesn't meet the criteria. So I don't think it meets the criteria, and I'm happy to vote that way. Or the other option I really like that the city attorney said is we could just step back and say, we can't make a decision on this. I think this is something that belongs in front of city council, not us, to make such a vast decision. Or I'm happy to vote and split the tie unless something has changed. So, and that's my only concern, is if something has changed from the last meeting and I'm not a tiebreaker anymore, I think city council should hear this. If we vote to not uphold what our planning commissioner or our planning director came up with, we are fundamentally changing east of Sepulveda. We are taking a site-specific property, and now we're opening a can of worms for, I mean, Tesla, again, I'm not judging the project in any which way. They could be gone in 2 years, and now somebody else could come in. And it's not in our code to have a car dealership. And it's my understanding that's what this is, and they would be seeking a dealership license to operate it. And I'm not gonna go against the director on this one. I don't see, and I'm really curious if I'm wrong. I would love for the commissioners who are in support of going against the director, if they could, other than it's a electric vehicle, not a regular vehicle station, to convince me how I'm wrong on that. Or a side issue, it should go to city council. So those are my thoughts. I'm happy to elaborate or ask any questions. That's sort of where I am right now.
Well, I think my stance is that it's not a dealership. I mean, this kind of product didn't exist 30 years ago when the land use element was created. And obviously we have an opportunity here in the next 6 to 12 months to update this land use element, which I think will kind of vet some things out. But in my mind, 30 years ago, this didn't exist. In my mind, this still is not a dealership. I'm still, I still hasn't changed either of overturning the director's determination.
Can I just ask staff a question? Is there any tax benefit? Because I think that was brought up, tax revenue was brought up by the applicant. Have you investigated will El Segundo receive any tax benefit from this business?
At the moment, there would be a standard business license tax. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the standard business license tax would be for this facility. It's generally based on floor area and head count. Typical of car dealerships, which based on our municipal code and the business tax code that we have, that's the only category it would fall into. This type of model or business model is currently under investigation at the state level, where they are determining where the sales tax actually is distributed for the business models similar to Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and the other EV cars or other car sales models where the majority or 100% of the sales are completed online. So we don't know exactly yet where the sales tax would be distributed.
I also forgot to disclose at the very beginning, which I was supposed to do and forgot, that I did have a telephonic communication with Jeff Puffer regarding this matter before I had actually received the agenda and was able to review it. And I just feel I have to disclose that there was a conversation had.
If I could ask everyone partaking in the meeting, if you could please speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear. We do have people in the lobby and it's really hard to hear. Thank you.
Do you guys like to chat?
So should we make a motion, or is there more?
Well, I do want to address when I was looking through this, there was a lot of mention of the Rivian project, the Rivian facility. I think that's a different circumstance. We didn't require any director determination to do that. It's a different zone. It's tucked away behind everything. It's an M2 zone where it's built for warehousing, industrial, things like that. It's not the corporate office zone. So I just wanted to make that point. I think that that's a pretty big distinction between the two facilities and the approval processes. But that's not to say that we don't want these types of uses in the city, but I think that we have to make sure that process-wise that it doesn't disrupt the land use and zoning that we have in place. I think one of the speakers brought up, this is progress. But on the other hand, when we have zoning requirements, we put types of businesses we want in these zones, that's the character we want in these zones. So it's progress versus backing down on what we want in that area. And I think that we have to this is what we want. This is what we wanted in the development of this zone. So I think that we should stick with it. And, further, what I talked about a lot last time, it's the argument to me kind of falls apart when the argument that fits in this zone is that there's customer interaction, therefore it is like a restaurant, which I don't understand that, but that's the argument that's their argument. So that's one hand. On the other hand, it's saying it's not a dealership, even though you can purchase cars there, you can test drive cars there, they're going to get a dealer's license, but because it doesn't have signage, then it's not a dealership. So to me, that's very very selective ways to make an argument that I just can't fundamentally do. It's not against, I'm against the project, I'm against overturning the director's determination. And further, on top of that, which I think is probably the biggest thing that gives me a little heartburn, gives me a lot of heartburn, is that if we approve this, then a car dealership becomes a land use by right that could be used in that entire area. This is not a one-off project or a one-off determination. This significantly changes the zoning rules that are in place. So if they leave, or if any other site on that, in that zone wanted to put, or wanted to use the argument that we have customer interaction, therefore we're just like a restaurant. To me, you could put anything in that zone at that point, if that's the argument that's being made. So you guys know where I stand on the topic, but I just wanted to address the Rivian comments and get my 2 cents out there.
So, Chairman Guy, so what happens in 6-12 months when we redo the land use element and all of a sudden it's allowed? Now we've missed an opportunity for a company to go in there instead of staring at a blight empty block for the next 10 years again. And it could change. I mean, we know obviously, I know this is going to come to us and come to city council again. I mean, it could change and add that into there as part of that CO zone. That CO zone could change to another zone along those corridors. So are we missing an opportunity here for something 6-12 months down the line is going to be allowable anyway, which we don't know because obviously it hasn't come to us or to the city council yet for approval. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
and
where
that's the thing
I
that
stand as well.
we don't know. That's
Well, yeah.
the thing. It could be anything. So I think that we should let that process play out instead of, the comment was made that they've been working for years plus on it, but they had a different avenue to go through before that. And they chose not to do that. Now we have to do it right away. Now they're against the clock. So we should let the process play out, have the public be more involved in that process, the overall plan process versus treating this as a one-off. And then if nothing changes, then we set a precedent of land use, how we as a commission evaluate what a land use is. If it's just customer interaction, then everything is allowed. That's my biggest concern.
I hear one of the motions that we consider is to defer this to city council. That's what
Well,
you.
there's two, so that's my whole
that's-
point to what Steve just said.
That's one of them.
I don't think this body is the appropriate body to make the decision that if we overturn what the director said, we're making a determination that has implications way down the road. I think the more appropriate body to do that would be our elected officials, which is our city council. We have 2 avenues to get it there, which is do a motion upholding the director's findings, and if it's 3-2, it goes there. Or if we don't want to do that, because I'm not sure it scares me if it isn't 3-2 now. Like, I don't know if there's been other changes since 2 weeks ago, then we're making this giant change. I would rather just say, because our city attorney told us we could do that, and just say, you know what, city council, planning commission can't make a decision on this one, and we're punting it over to you. So either way it gets to city council, I don't care, as long as it gets to city council, because I don't think this body is the appropriate body to make such a drastic decision. Just exactly what Commissioner Taylor just said. We have a land use agreement, we have new land use coming through. We don't know what it's gonna say. I don't think it's our job to change it to this magnitude of what they're asking us to do. And again, when they had the avenue of doing the zone amendment, that was a different way to get in front of us, and they chose not to do that. So I think it needs to go to city council.
Well, but
either-
they could appeal to city council
Well, if we
regardless.
uphold,
So it will go.
right, so, yeah. But
I mean,
if
but
it's
is there-
3-2 in
We can
favor
send
of
it directly.
overturning,
Yeah.
then it won't go to city council.
If we overturn.
If we
Yeah. Yeah,
we
overturn the
uphold,
director's, if we have 3 people
Yeah.
that want to overturn the director's
If we-
findings, it does not go to city council. It's a done deal. It's happening, and I just don't think that's appropriate. And I'm not trying to sway people's votes. I think I knew where people stood by watching it. I was the tiebreaker, which is why it was brought here. I've indicated how I'm going to vote. But an easier way, if we don't want to vote, is just putting it up to city council.
I mean,
So-
if we
And
know
according
how
to
we're
our city
voting-
attorney, there's nothing wrong with doing that, because my whole point is, I just think something of this magnitude is more appropriate in front of our elected officials, not this quasi-judicial body that we are. That's my thought.
But I think the item at its core is, do we agree with the determination or not? It's not whether we want the project. Do we have any justification or any, for those of you who are leaning the direction, opposite direction of me, is there a case to say that the director's determination is incorrect? And I don't think there is. I mean,
And that's I agree with you on that, and this isn't, do I like the project, don't I like the project, do I like an abandoned building sitting on PCH, or don't I? The question is, are the director's findings, consistent with what the code is? So I looked at the code sections, I looked at what his findings were, and I think the director's making the right call in this circumstance.
Mark, would you like to chime in?
No. I mean, to elaborate, I said what I was going to say last time. My vote is the same. So if that's the concern, it's going to go to city council because I don't get nothing's changed.
Yeah, I will defer it to city council too.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion then. I'm gonna move to, uphold the director's findings.
Do we
I
have a
never do this, but I second.
And I'll take votes. Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner McCaverty,
Aye.
Commissioner Tyler,
No.
Vice Chair Inga,
Aye.
Chair Magai.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
And the record should reflect that that's a final decision by the planning commission that can be appealed to the city council within 10 days.
Okay, that moves us to our next item. Environmental Assessment EA 1400, Site Plan Review Number SPR 2504, and Development Agreement Number 2601 for the construction and operation of a new 5-story, 230,000 square foot data center and 66 12 kilovolt electric substation serving the new data center. And I believe we have a presentation for this item.
Yes, we have a staff presentation. I'll try to keep this kind of high level. We also have our environmental consultant, Kimley Horn, who's here to also talk to the addendum and the process that was undertaken through that addendum process to come to the conclusions that it did. So to give a little bit of context, the subject site that we are talking about, located at 750 North Nash, is part of the corporate campus specific plan. As you see here, it's on the eastern side of town, adjacent to a metro station and the metro lines. It is part of a larger development project that has a mix of uses that include commercial, Lakers facility, hotels, and a mix of restaurants and other types of uses. More specifically, the subject property is currently developed with a hotel that was constructed roughly about 10 years ago. The site as a whole was part of, as I said, the corporate campus specific plan. And when the EIR evaluated the potential environmental impacts, effects of the full build out of the specific plan area, it assumed a build out of roughly about 2.5 million square feet of mixed uses, including 2 million square feet of office, 550,000 square feet of other type of land uses that are allowed within the corporate campus specific plan. The applicant proposes to demolish that existing hotel and construct a new 5-story data center measuring roughly a little over 230,000 square feet. In addition to that, to the south or immediately adjacent to the south would be an electrical substation that would assist in the powering of that particular data center. The proposed design of the the data center includes architectural features so that it doesn't, at least appear to be just this monolithic box. It includes some aluminum louvers, metal cladding for insulation, LED lighting in between the walls and the cladding to produce some visual interest at night. It also has incorporated into the facades, especially along the northwest and eastern facades, glazing and double glazed windows, so that it is not just a box and provides some visual appeal. Along the north elevation on the bottom floor is kind of the entrance, so it has some storefront type windows, so it kind of announces at least some sort of semblance of an office at least type appearance for the building. The 5-story data center would be exactly that, 5 stories. First floor would be dedicated to generators, the backup generators for that would be used for emergency purposes. They would not be running 24 hours. They would be used for the sole purpose of powering up if there is an emergency and there is a electricity that's shut off to the site or to the grid or to that general area. The generators would be able to sustain the data center for up to 24 hours. Occasionally, they would be used in terms of testing on a monthly basis to ensure that they would do their intended purpose, which is to start up on an emergency situation. So a little bit more about the data center. Each floor has dedicated space for the data hall. Each story, if you will, has an internal height of approximately 30 to 35 feet internal, and that is by design in order to accommodate the service racks, and also have enough space above that to properly circulate and take out or minimize the heat that is produced by the servers. A little bit more about the power and cooling and backup systems. So, as I indicated, it would operate as a 24/7 facility, constant power. Maximum power demand is 49.5 megawatts. The actual generators, again, would be used to in an emergency situation. A lot of talk has been, or before I get there, in terms of the specifics about the generators, there is a total of 16. They are all contained within the building, so they would not be visible from the street or to the public. 15 of those would be utilized in emergency situations. There would be one kind of as a backup. Again, they would be tested regularly, along with any kind of requirements that AQMD has, et cetera. So in order to cool the system, there is a series of HVAC systems that would be located on the very top. They are air-cooled chillers. There is a redundancy design in that, which is used in the lowering the temperature of the water that is used for the proposed data center. The data center proposes a design of water usage that is a loop system, which means that it constantly recirculates the water that it has, so it's not like it takes in water and then disposes of it immediately as it goes through the system to cool down the system. It's almost like a swimming pool. It brings in the water and continuously recirculates, goes through these air-chilled systems to cool down the water, and then recirculates so the actual water consumption is not a continuous situation. So along with this project, there are a series there's the entitlement for this includes a site plan review application. The site plan review application is required because the project does measure over 50,000 square feet per our municipal code. Anything above 50,000 square feet requires approval of a site plan review, primarily for the building size, the design. And these are the findings, much like we were speaking about the director findings. These are the findings that the Planning Commission needs to make when it comes to a site plan review. Staff believes that there is evidence that can support approval or at least making those findings in the affirmative to recommend approval. So a little bit about that. Again, I think I went over the electrical substation and the use of that. In addition to looking at it from not only the site plan review and the development standards of the municipal code, the corporate campus specific plan does have development standards that are pertinent to all development within the specific plan area. This project complies with those requirements with respect to height, setback, parking, landscaping, and site access. So with this project, we, again, to talk a little bit about the water, that is something that we can elaborate on as well through the, with our environmental consultant. There were a series of technical studies and demand studies, as well as usage studies that were done to look at and compare the existing water usage of the hotel versus the water usage of this proposed data center, which again uses a closed loop system. When we looked at the environmental review, the CEQA, there was, as I indicated earlier, an EIR that was put together for back in 2002 when the corporate campus specific plan was contemplated. That EIR, which was certified in 2002, is not just solely used as a basis to approve or recommend approval of this project. Rather, it's a basis in which we compare this project to all the impacts that were done or contemplated as a result of a 2.5 million square foot build out for that particular site. To date, there's only about half of that 2.5 million square feet has actually come to fruition and constructed. So when we look at the impacts of the existing development and add the impacts of what is proposed, those cumulative impacts are still less than what was contemplated with a 2.5 million square foot build out for the specific plan area. Hence the conclusion that an addendum would be appropriate along with the appropriate technical studies to affirm and back that up. Again, our environmental consultant is here, and she'll be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. With respect to the public comments that were received, a lot of it was, kind of thematically speaking, raised a lot of issues with respect to environmental topics, water, power, noise, the age of the specific plan EIR, which I kind of addressed right now. Again, we're not fully relying on it per se. The appropriate technical studies have been done in order to assess the impacts of this particular project in relation to whether that would exceed the impacts that were contemplated with the 2.5 million square foot build out of the specific plan area. Water, kind of spoke to that a little bit in terms of the closed loop system, so it's not utilizing water as much as some of the older, data center models would currently use. Noise was another factor that was raised. Again, that was in regards to the HVAC system and the potential use of the generators. The generators, again, are inside on the first floor. The generators would only be tested, incrementally during, maybe once or twice a month, or as required by AQMD. And the power, that is something that is done, or at least with addressed by the incorporation of a substation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our environmental consultant, who will kind of elaborate a little bit more on the addendum. We'll kind of give you a little bit more information on the how the 2002 EIR fits in with this, and how this was assessed to come to the conclusion that an addendum is appropriate for this particular project. So with that, I will introduce Rita Garcia with Kimley Horn, who is the city's environmental consultant.
Thank you, Eduardo. Yes, as Eduardo mentioned, my name is Rita Garcia with Kimley Horn and Associates, and I served as the project manager for the project's environmental analysis. With me here tonight are my air quality and noise experts, Heidi Rue and Sophia Leoron, and our deputy environmental manager, which is Heather Boland. So just for context, I will be repeating some of the items that Eduardo mentioned, but as he mentioned, the project site is located within the El Segundo Corporate Campus Specific Plan EIR. That becomes the zoning for the project site. An EIR was certified by the city in 2002 for the Corporate Campus Specific Plan EIR. And just to note that an EIR does not expire. Okay, there's a finality associated with environmental clearance. Except for that, any later discretionary action that is proposed within, for example, the specific plan area, is measured against certain CEQA criteria. Do they trigger later subsequent review? So when does CEQA allow preparation of an addendum to an EIR? So if some changes to the earlier EIR are required, and if none of the conditions that trigger later subsequent review occur. The EIR should also, or excuse me, the addendum should include an explanation of why we found that subsequent review is not required. An addendum does not require public review like an EIR does, and it does therefore not have a public review period. Specifically, what are the triggers for subsequent review? If there are substantial changes to the project, if there are substantial changes to the circumstances surrounding the project, if there's new information of substantial importance concerning the project, and these result in new significant environmental impacts or increase the severity of the environmental impacts disclosed in the EIR. So our analysis concluded that the proposed project did not trigger any of the three conditions that warrant subsequent review under State CEQA Guidelines 15162, and that the project did not result in any new significant impacts or increase the severity of those impacts analyzed in the earlier EIR. Okay, switch to, thank you. Again, just to mention, and this depicts the specific plan area for which the certified EIR was completed. The certified EIR identified a development envelope, which is the basis for our review of the proposed project. It anticipated the development of 2.2 million gross square feet of mixed uses within the 47-acre area. As Eduardo mentioned, thus far there has been construction that has occurred to date, totaling 1.7 million square feet, and I have a later slide that will detail that. So again, is only approximately 1/2 of the entitled or environmentally reviewed development capacity has been constructed to date. Our addendum, the addendum includes a very detailed project description that goes over the various characteristics of the proposed project. I'd like to highlight just a few because they're particularly relevant to our analysis. So again, there is a dedicated 66 over 12 kilovolt electrical substation. It is located on site, and its function is to receive electricity from the grid, through transformers converted from 66 kilovolt to 12, and then deliver for data center use. There are 16 emergency backup generators. They are located on the ground level within sound attenuating enclosures. Again, all of these characteristics of the project components inform our environmental analysis. The 16 diesel fuel, the backup generator are Tier 4, which means that they are the the strictest standard by EPA standard of emissions. They are diesel-fueled engines, internal combustion engines with generators, which are referred to gensets in the industry, each with a 6,500-gallon sub-base fuel storage tank. One of the 16 generators is for redundancy and backup. And these function, as Eduardo mentioned, to operate only during power outages and emergencies, and they do require periodic testing. The cooling plant sits on the building's roof. There's 24 rooftop air-cooled chillers with free cooling modules. Air-cooled chillers speak to the volume of water demand that their operations would require. And the free cooling modules means that during cool weather, they use the outdoor ambient air quality instead of the system to cool. It does include a closed-loop chilled water ring, which loops from the data hall computer rooms and air handlers and chillers. That system is filled one time with water, and it does not require refilling except for a malfunction or occasional maintenance. So our approach, again, to come to our conclusion. One of the first things that we look at is the zoning for the project site. As I mentioned earlier, the project site is zoned corporate campus specific plan. In review of the permitted uses in the specific plan, both data centers and substations are identified as permitted uses by right. So they're specifically permitted by right. There's no conditional use permit or other administrative use type of permit required for those types of facilities. Both the data center and the substation were anticipated in the specific plan, and I will quote, "Because of the potential for technology-related telecommunications and web hosting facilities, the specific plan area could include on an on-site electrical substation and/or a 15-megawatt electrical cogeneration facility." So that is an alternative source of power that was contemplated in the earlier EIR. The table that we're looking at was one of the first steps that we took to consider whether the proposed project was in the scope of the earlier EIR, and that was the development capacity. The first thing we looked at, as Eduardo mentioned, was the approved project. Since the draft EIR was approved, the final EIR stepped down the overall development envelope to only 2.2 million square feet of mixed uses, and this table shows the various types of uses, everything from offices, restaurants, hotel, and one of the land use categories is telecommunications and web hosting. We identify that as the most similar to data center operations by function and type of equipment. We then looked at all of the land uses that have been constructed to date in order to determine what is the remaining environmental envelope or scope, if you will, that the proposed project will be measured against. And once we considered that, the approved remaining project development capacity turned out to be approximately 1.1 million square feet of mixed uses. When we consider the existing hotel that's being displaced, which totaled 85,762 square feet, and the proposed data center at 230,780, we have a net increase in gross square footage of 145,18. So we added that, the project's gross square footage, to the remaining development capacity after being adjusted for the construction to date. And that returned a remaining capacity of just under 1 million square feet of mixed uses. And that means that within the specific plan area, the envelope of the environmental analysis still considers a capacity of just under 1 million square feet available. So we took another step in looking a little bit closer. We didn't look only at gross square footage. The environmental impact report looked at various thresholds and resource areas, including air quality, noise, among others. And in this slide, I'd like to highlight just a couple of comparative uses for water consumption, wastewater generation, and others, and the approach that we took for each of these. Mind you that we took a similar approach not only for these resource areas that we've highlighted in this slide, but also for each of the thresholds that are presented in the EIR. For example, we already discussed the square footage. I won't reiterate that, but we looked at the water consumption. The approved project EIR identified a water consumption of 965,318 gallons per day. The hotel, which would be removed, generated results in a water consumption of 14,299 gallons per day. And this was based on actual hotel billing records, and so we took that. And the applicant's engineer provided memorandums as to the wastewater generation and water consumption for the project, which fed into our analysis and were also reviewed by our team as well as the city's Public Works Department. After all is said and done, when we compare the, for example, water consumption of the existing hotel to the water consumption of the proposed data center, there's a net decrease in water consumption of approximately 8,900 gallons per day of water consumption. And so the question, it begs the question, how could that be if a data center, well, not all data centers are created equal. As I mentioned earlier, and that's why I felt it was important to discuss the closed loop system. In this type of chilled system, in the cooling plant that's proposed on the rooftop, as I described, it is a closed loop system. It is filled once, and then it circulates throughout the loop and is not required to be filled except with certain circumstances. We took a similar approach to wastewater generation, which is, again, when we compared the wastewater generated by the hotel, which is approximately 10,000 gallons per day, and then the proposed data center, which is primarily driven by the employees, meaning the kitchens, the bathrooms, the sinks, and so forth. Again, there is a net decrease in wastewater generation of approximately 7,400 gallons per day. And so we did this exercise again for electric power. Electric power is the one resource area where we determined that the data center would generate a greater demand or consumption of power than would the available capacity in the EIR. When considering the construction to date and the envelope of the environmental analysis in the EIR. And so we looked at the threshold specifically concerning electricity, which is the availability of supply and the infrastructure needed. And we found that there was, based on the location of the project site, the anticipated construction of a data center, a cogeneration facility, and a substation in the EIR, and the existence of Southern California Edison facilities nearby, we concluded that significant infrastructure improvements would not be required for the project. Another comparison that we took is in the average daily trips. The hotel generated 375 average daily trips. The project data center would generate 184, resulting in a net decrease of 191 trips per day. We did a similar review. The project would generate 50 jobs. The existing hotel currently generates 55, so that means there would be a net decrease of 5 jobs with the hotel. And so this is just an example of some of the resource areas that were most notable for the project's operations. We did a similar exercise throughout all of the thresholds that were analyzed in the EIR. And again, we found that the project, as I mentioned earlier, does not trigger subsequent review based on the criteria that CEQA 15162 specifies, and it did not result in new significant impacts or increase in the severity of the impacts analyzed in the EIR. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions here available tonight. I'll return it to Eduardo.
Thank you, Rita. And just to kind of close it up here, the staff's presentation. So the final piece of the puzzle, the applicant is also contemplating a development agreement with the city, largely due to the loss of TOT as a result of the closure of the hotel. There would be a loss in revenue to the city based on the TOT collected. So until the data center, if approved and gets up and running, is contemplating or requesting or offering to make the city whole until that gets up and running, along with utility user tax payments and additional reimbursements to the city as well, in order to accommodate for the loss, at least in revenue from that from the hotel. All that is not within the purview of the commission. However, the commission looks at that, and along with the entirety of the applications before you, which includes the site plan review application, and makes a recommendation to the city council, which ultimately would make the decision. So with that, staff, in reviewing the application in accordance with the findings, in accordance with CEQA, in working with our CEQA consultant, we all believe that the appropriate findings can be made in the affirmative to recommend approval of this project to the city council, and staff recommends that the planning commission adopt the resolution that is attached that would recommend approval of this project to city council. So with that, concludes our staff presentations, and we are available for comment. The applicant is here, just to let you know, give you a feel for as you can see, we have a packed room. We have received a total of 52 requests to speak on the matter. So just to give you a little bit of context on that as well.
And Mr. Chair, I just want to emphasize, just for the benefit of the public that's here, just to underscore something that Eduardo just said, no final decision will be made tonight. So either way, however the Planning Commission votes, this will have to go to the City Council. So I just want to make that abundantly clear to the audience that no final decision is going to be made on this project tonight. The Planning Commission is acting as a recommending body, but you're not making a final decision.
So that completes staff's presentation. We usually have give the commissioners opportunity to ask questions of staff, what they saw, or the consultant. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to ask at this time? I have some questions for the for Kimley Horn specifically. So I was looking through the noise analysis, and what you guys did, it's been done before, right? Where you take pieces of equipment that you know are going in, and then you add up that, and then you do the noise assessment. But I noticed that it didn't include the substation noise or the fan noise that's going to be coming from there. But on top of that, I think that what's probably more practical to do is to go to data centers, actual data, instead of doing this theoretical thing of what these pieces of equipment will cumulatively generate in terms of noise. I think I would prefer that you guys go take noise readings at several data centers, because I hear that they are very loud, very high pitched, and very consistent. So I think that what you're doing is good on a smaller scale, but I think a larger scale, now that there are a lot of data centers that you can do noise readings for, that you can do a better noise analysis than what you've done here.
Yeah, just to speak to that, and then I'll refer to Sophia, was that, so yes, sometimes the industry approach is to go to actual operating facilities and take representative noise samplings. In this instance, we have noise standards or representative noise levels that are used in the modeling and entered into the model to determine the project's composite noise being generated. And so that's the approach that we took in our noise model. But again, we would have to, and we do this, for example, this is an approach that's typically used and often used concerning parking, right, and unique facilities. Drive-through queues is another. I've done that here in the city of El Segundo itself. So we would have to find another data center that would operate using the same components and the same systems. For example, the generators that are being proposed, the number of generators, for us to be able to compare apples to apples. And so that is why the industry approach, because not every data center is created equal. Again, they all have different design parameters and operating conditions. For example, the generators that are being proposed for this project are enclosed with a noise attenuating area. And so all of that was considered in our analysis. We went to another data center. It would take a little bit of effort to find a comparable or representative sampling. And so the industry approach is to try to identify, based on the parameters that we do know for this facility, and develop a composite analysis based on that.
I think just to reiterate what Rita was saying is that the operational noise was modeled through SoundPlan, which is a 3D model, and that incorporates the manufacturer specification, which is specific for the engines and the chillers that are chosen for the site, and that includes sound levels. It also includes the equipment locations, elevations of the surrounding areas, the project design features, including the walls Rita was just speaking about, the surrounding buildings in the area, the topography, and all receptor locations. So it is very specific for the equipment that will be chosen and sited on the site.
Does it take into account frequency?
It does take into account all frequency and low frequency.
Okay. My next question is, I did not see a GHG analysis in this addendum.
Right, so at the time the certified EIR was prepared, greenhouse gas emissions were not one of the thresholds that were being analyzed. And so the question that is asked regarding the applicability of, or does the project qualify for an addendum, or is the project within the scope of the earlier environmental analysis, are the ones that I mentioned earlier. Does the project result in a new significant impact? Does it increase the severity of those impacts according to the thresholds that are identified in the EIR?
So
that is why there is no GHG analysis.
Well, I see it as that in 2002, the CEQA checklist did not include GHGs. But
That's right.
It does
yeah.
now.
There's
so
a lot of, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think times have changed. And I'm concerned about the 700+% increase in electrical use. So I think that even though it's allowed to not do it, because in 2002, which obviously is a very, very old document, that because the new CEQA checklist is out now, that does include, I think that there should have been an analysis on it, is my point. And so it's a 5-story building, right? And this may be a question for staff, I don't think it has to do with CEQA, but it's a 5-story building, but it's up to 160,000 or 160 feet. That's correct, right? That's the correct statement? Okay, so these are giant floors, right? So it's a little disingenuous to call it a 5-story data center, right? 5-story buildings, what, 70 feet or so, 65 or 70 feet? So, okay, I just wanted that.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may speak to that, that's one of the items that we looked at because aesthetics is a resource area that we consider in the addendum. And the specific plan identified a maximum height of, I believe, 185, if not 175 feet. I have it in my notes. I could verify that for you. And then another thing that we look at is the proposed project would be in a specific plan area and in an area that has various heights of buildings from 1 to 5 within the specific plan area. So the vision for development of that area, as well as being surrounded by other buildings that vary from 1 story to 10 stories in a generally commercial area. We have a table and a figure in our project description that detail the various land uses that surround the project, the specific plan area, and so that develops the visual character, if you will, for the area.
Okay, and then you deem that height is consistent with the visual character there, or you're saying that it's allowed?
Yeah, it both. You know, we looked at the surrounding area and the commercial.
What's the second, what would be the second tallest building in the area? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to research. Okay. They just varied from 1 to 10 stories in the general surrounding.
Well, stories or feet?
The stories.
Okay, so then.
Yeah, we didn't look at the feet, just the stories.
Okay. Okay.
But permissible within the specific plan area is 185 feet, okay. I believe.
Okay.
Yes, the maximum permitted height is 175 feet.
Oh, 75.
So whether you call them stories, but there are 5 horizontal planes within the building.
Okay. Any other commissioners like to ask questions or comments?
You mentioned that an EIR does not expire. Did you say that in your presentation? Okay. So are those 3 criteria that you mentioned what triggers a new EIR then?
That it doesn't necessarily trigger a new EIR. Then for any discretionary action that is proposed for a project that has received CEQA clearance, if you will, then you look at those 3 criteria. Does the project result in any significant new impacts? Does it increase the severity of the impact? Does the project change? Does the circumstances, the ones that I mentioned? And so it doesn't necessarily trigger a new EIR. EIRs trigger when there is a potentially significant impact that cannot be reduced to less than significant and therefore is significant and avoidable. It may trigger a mitigated negative declaration, for example. It's a tiering approach to CEQA clearance that CEQA allows, and it's addressed in 15162.
And your findings in reviewing all of this were that none of those 3 criteria were met, correct?
That's right.
And what, other than looking at, you mentioned you looked at one other data center, was there a lot of the information, the servers and the coolant models and the closed loop system, is that all information that was provided to you by the applicant as to what their project is going to entail?
Yes, I think that I was describing the proposed project, and all of the characteristics of the proposed project are described in detail in our chapter called Project Description. Everything from the environmental setting, the zoning, the general plan land use designation, as well as the operating characteristics by major component. For example, the gensets are described, the chiller and the cooling systems are described, the data center building and administrative building, the square foot, and so on. There's a lot of detail there, and that is as proposed by the proposed project. And by the way, if there was another discretionary action that the applicant or anybody else within the specific plan area came and presented to the city, it similarly would have to undergo a similar review. Is it within the scope of the earlier environmental analysis or not?
I have a question for staff. How many other data centers are here in town currently that are operating?
There are 4.
4. Do you know this might be a long shot, do we know the usage, from a utility standpoint, of how many megawatts they require?
No, I don't.
Okay.
How close are those other 4 data centers to this proposed new area?
I believe the closest one would be 444 Nash, which is approximately located at the next metro stop, just south of this particular site.
Well, I have questions on sorry. Did anybody else? I didn't want to jump the line. Okay. You may have, I'll start with sound. You may have attempted to explain it. I am a layman's layman, so you're gonna have to work with me here. When you model things like the sound, how do you scale that up depending on like the sizes of the project? I guess I'm trying to understand. It sounded like the industry standard is to go out and take sound measurements of similar equipment, or how did that work? It didn't sound like you have data on the sound of a data center that is configured to the scale of this one.
So the model that we use is called SoundPlan. It's a 3D model. It's very specific to the exact equipment that'll be on site, and the noise levels that we modeled are for the chillers, and that manufacturer provided that data for us for those exact sound levels. So another data center might not be representative of what this data center would be, we used exact specifications for this project with the number, the design of the building, the sound walls, the loose, everything was specific for this project. So another data center may not be as representative for this project if it's not designed the same way, if they're using different manufacturers, different, sound barriers, et cetera.
And since I don't know anything about as much about sound engineering as maybe I should, when you take a project like this one, and so we have other data centers, right? We have several, but this one is more than twice the size of any of the other ones. And so when you do this sound modeling, you take that into account, and you guys still believe that it's below the standards? I'm not questioning it. I'm asking, is that how that works?
I can't speak to the noise at other data centers because I didn't model that for this data center. It's representative of the noise that would occur on site, the results that are in the study.
Okay. Another thing, I don't know if you can probably help speak to this. I didn't quite understand it. There's a slide in here that breaks down the square footages of the different allowable uses in the specific plan area. And it has a line item specifically related to, specifically related to the data centers. And it says approved project EIR, gross square footage, 65,000 square, what does that mean?
Okay, so so when an environmental impact analysis is prepared for a project such as a specific plan area where there is no precise development application submitted, then the planner identifies a development envelope or a conceptual site plan and a conceptual development. It does this based on the permitted uses that are specified in the specific plan, and it considers floor area ratios and other factors. And so what this table is it's from the environmental impact report, and it identified the various land use types. It doesn't comprehensively list. It's not intended to communicate that that is the maximum of each type of land use that is allowed within the specific plan area. For example, that identified the EIR anticipated 87,000 square feet of hotel space. Since the EIR was certified, there has been substantially more, 184,490 square feet. So what the objective of the development capacity that is evaluated in the EIR is to try to establish an envelope, a development envelope, an environmental scope, if you will, to try to evaluate the environmental impacts. Otherwise, if you don't establish some type of development capacity, then it would be hard to analyze the impact. But again, in a programmatic type of analysis, such as a specific plan, it is a conceptual development. It isn't precisely, this is the maximum that is allowed. It is the basis for the environmental impact analysis. One thing I should note regarding, and if I may speak to the line item that is called telecommunications web hosting, wherein we identify 65,000 square feet in the first column that the approved DIR identified, constructed to date 7290, leaving 57,710. The project came in at 23780, so it did exceed that capacity. However, when we considered the scope of the environmental analysis, because this is a programmatic analysis, a specific plan that offers a conceptual site plan, we compared the project to the base to the bottom. So we looked at, okay, does the project cause an exceedance of the remaining development capacity of 1.1 million square feet? And so the basis for the findings for the resource areas included in the EIR are based on the build out of specific plan area rather than line item.
But I guess as those different elements that go into the development capacity become unbalanced, as you might say. Like if one or two or three or different areas come to dominate that development capacity envelope, is there any consideration to that balance? Like you're saying we have like, if I looked at this, I would say, oh, we have 962,000 square feet of available development envelope. So we could put another 900,000 square feet of data center there, and the EIR wouldn't change at all. We would say it's within the envelope, we're good.
No, you would have to conduct a similar analysis that we do. When a discretionary action would come in for this specific plan area later, it would have to undergo the same tests that this project underwent. In that case, it would, if, for example, if this project were approved, its quote-unquote baseline for analysis would be to consider the environmental impacts associated with this project, which would then be consolidated, if you will, with the earlier with the development that has been constructed to date, and then determine the available environmental scope. So that it would have to, any discretionary action within a certified EIR's scope of environmental analysis has to undergo the same review.
Okay.
Whatever that may be.
I think I'm done with this part of it. I think I have a question, maybe a technical one for staff. There's the power supply for the project is supposed to come from Edison. I think, is there like a letter or some kind of in the packet about whether or not they are actually going to do this substation? And
Yes, there is. There is a letter, and that was actually going to be my next question and comment, was that in the EIR, it states that, that Edison anticipates having the electricity available, but the letter is a will-serve letter, and it's saying that it has to do a study before it makes any real
The mention of this.
Yeah.
I'll open that if I have your permission, please, to bear with me for a moment. Actually.
Are you looking for the letter? I can hand it to you then.
We have the letter here.
we have a printed copy
We have
if
the
you're
letter.
looking for one.
There you got it.
Yes, the basis, and there's a details analysis in the addendum under the section called Utilities and Services. And it says, SCE may need to, the will serve letter says, SCE will serve the above subject project's electrical requirements per the California Public Utilities Commission and Federal Energy Regulatory Commission tariffs. SCE may need to conduct utility studies to assess whether additions or modifications to the existing system are needed. And so, in the way we interpret. Oh, thank you. Pardon me, Mr. Chair. SCE is actually here and can address the question specifically if you so desired.
Sure.
Saved by the bell.
Yeah, well, I guess it's good evening. Todd Sword from Southern California Edison. I've been working on this project. Is this up properly? Okay, great. Thank you for having me. What was? Can you hear it? Oh
There
my
you
gosh!
go.
Whoa. Okay.
Welcome.
I'm not used to microphones like that. Okay. Can you repeat the question so I make sure I get it properly? Yes, I'm speaking into the mic.
So,
I'm gonna have to eat this mic. Oh my God, it's so close. Okay. Is that better? Have I done it? Can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll just
Yeah, there you go.
try not to run into it here. All right,
So
glad
the-
we got that done.
So the EIR states that Edison has enough capacity. I forget what language they use, but the will serve letter essentially says that Edison's going to have to do a study. To see.
Oh, yeah. For any large load projects like this, we do a method of service study. Is that easier? Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, so for any large load projects, Edison does what's called a method of service study, and that determines exactly where we're gonna connect that line to and how we're gonna bring it to that site exactly how we're going to build the substation and so on and so forth. So, and included in that does include the environmental aspect that is included, I believe, to cover the CEQA Geo Order 131E requirements.
Yeah, you tailed off there, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try it. I've not had this problem before, but okay. So we do a method of service study, and that's how we determine exactly how we're going to connect it, all the equipment we're going to need, where those lines are going to tap into, the size, everything, equipment. And that's what we determine. And then when that's completed, it's up to the applicant to tell us to begin that. So a will serve letter, you know, as a Public Utilities Commission, we're obligated to serve anybody that we do. So we never offer time or cost on those items, but we will provide the power as soon as we can.
And the EIR, the previous, or the 2002 EIR says that any loads could be supplemented by a cogen plant, right? Correct? And that's not an Edison question, but
right.
That's the previous project question. So then, if there's not enough power, or if you guys, whatever it comes into, you guys would potentially build a cogen.
Well, let me add this, because I did some research ahead of time coming here. So we checked with our engineers, our sub-trans and distribution engineers, to see what the impact would be to this project. And so we will have to do some upgrades to the El Nido A-Bank substation, which is the 220 kV to 66 that will feed from there. And so but that's not going to impact the rest of the city. That's only for the load that we have here. So in addition to that, after that, our engineer says that we have enough power for the city for at least 10 years based on the projects that we know that are coming. So, and that's why it's always important. We always ask cities, developers, tell us what's coming. We'll be ready for you. So that's how that part's done.
So I thought I saw in the presentation that there would be no any upgrades to the Edison systems. Is that in the
We just have to tap into the 66 kV line
Uh-huh.
and then build the substation on their site. So there's no new lines, no new circuits, no new anything that we have to do in that. We will have to connect to the 66. I don't know exactly where that is. That's within the study that's been completed. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your will serve letter, just as a matter of help me out here.
Yes.
It's addressed to the project on Campus Drive, but is that the same site as the data center? Is it on?
It's not on Campus Drive.
It's not, I know.
Oh, is that?
It's not on Campus Drive, but the letter says Campus Drive, right?
It does. That might be the applicant's mailing address. I don't know. Or no, this is the
That's what
subject.
they're calling that the project. So I guess
Okay.
my question is does that matter if you're saying you're going to serve one place as opposed to another? You're going to serve whoever applies, and if it's
Correct.
so that's just a minor technical glitch by the applicant.
I could tell you afterwards what I think the will serve letters are, but mostly I think they benefit the investors, that they know, yes, they will have power for their projects. So, but yes, we're going to serve anybody that comes into our territory that has a real safe project.
And who bears the cost of the connecting to the line and all the rest? Who pays for that?
Yeah, I mean, so the way our utility operates, we're an investor-owned utility. So our investors give us the money, we build it on the customer's behalf, and then we collect that with every kilowatt hour through what we provide as a cost allowance for our customers. So that allows them. However, for subtrans projects, everything is really considered added facilities or non-standard. So the customer actually pays for the majority of everything. They pay for all of the substation itself as well. And then what Edison covers through our rates, through all of us, is the line extension to the site, which is a much smaller portion. I don't know the cost breakdown of that, but it's pretty small. And the only real issue is if the business goes out of business or reduces their load significantly before that payback period, that's the only time that something like that could happen. But that happens with all of our customers. That's where we get deposits and make sure that they have site control and all those kind of provisions in there to help make sure that they're, we're not building stuff that is going to not get used, and then all the ratepayers are left covering the cost. But actually, rates will go down in general for data centers because large load customers, they're using 24-hour power. So once we set up their infrastructure, they're just on constantly, and they got their backup generators in case the utility fails. So it actually provides more revenue than we need to cover the costs for them. So it actually helps spread the fixed cost of running our utility over a larger number of kilowatt hours and customers. So we're keen on that fact. But yes, cost, we are very keen on not allowing for cost transference of things. And, you know, we have to make sure we choose customers that don't go out of business too soon before we pay things back. But here we're built out. This is a built-out community. The infrastructure's strong. It's good. I checked the A-Bank situation. We have, I think, by a couple of, in addition to El Nido, which is getting the upgrades, the other cell, I forget the name of the other one. But we have over 150 megawatts.
You're getting
available.
quieter as we go. Just want you to
I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember the name of the other substation. I have it in my pocket over there. But yes, we have the El Nido and the Sepulveda. No, Sepulveda is a different one. Anyway, the two substations that serve El Segundo have plenty of power.
I would just note that ratepayer advocate groups like the Utility Reform Network or TURN, they oppose data centers because of the socialized utility costs.
What did they say? I'm sorry.
They opposed the
They
rapid
oppose.
acceleration of data centers.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
I just want to put that out there. You're saying it's going to lower rates. I think that
Yeah, we're working with our corporate communications group to actually come out with a thing to figure out. But basically, it's the operating costs of the utility. How much does it cost us to run our utility? And how much revenue do we connect with the kilowatt hours? And we set our price based on the amount of kilowatt hours that we think we're going to receive to cover our costs. So we don't make any profits on the sales of electricity. That's a pass-through. It's a different way. CPUC does that. So ultimately, if we are getting more kilowatt hours for the same fixed cost, then the rates will go down. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward how that works. But I just, I don't have a visual to give you. It's just a cost versus kilowatt hours.
okay. Thank you.
Generated.
Did you have any other questions for? Okay. So with that, we'll open public comment. Thank you. And how many speakers did you say we have?
We have a total of 54, but usually the first right goes to the applicant.
Okay, so we have 54. Okay, we'll open with, well, first, let me say thank you for everyone being here. We do like to hear from the community. We do like to get your thoughts as we make these kinds of decisions. And we thank you for all the people that submitted 750 plus pages of comments through email. So we appreciate this public input. So now with that, we'll open up public communications and we'll start with that, the applicant.
And then
And we had a presentation that I wanted to go through. Hi, everyone. I'm Arjun. I represent 8
I'm
Form.
sorry, before you begin, I know the first, right of presentation goes to the applicant, but are you going to also want to establish a time limit moving forward after this?
Yes, I would.
Or we'll cross that bridge when we get to it?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
how long is your presentation gonna be?
I think it should be like 6 minutes.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, and I'm sure you'll have questions of the applicant as well anyways.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm 8 Form, actually. I'm the founder and the managing partner of this entity that's bringing this project forth to this community. I'm originally from the South Bay. When my parents and I immigrated to this country, moved to 182nd Street in Carson. I grew up in Rancho Palos Verdes. My sister and my nephews live in Manhattan Beach, and I feel responsible. Sorry, I don't want to be disingenuous, but that's the truth. And the reason I'm bringing that framework here is because I actually care more about what I put forth as a developer than most of the private equity companies that have built out the city. So if you go to the next slide, I'm not a data center developer. I developed the hotel that's right adjacent to this project. I spent 5 years of my life, 2015 to 2020, building this. And it's 2 office buildings, a parking structure, and the AC hotel. I'm extremely proud of what we built. It's a select service property like most of the hotels in this neighborhood, but we chose to go the extra mile to try to make it look better than just the boxes that a lot of the private equity firms coming into this town around 2008, 2012 with cheap debt built boxes that are not doing well. 6 hotels in the last 7 months have defaulted on their loans. That's a real fact, and that's publicly known loans, right? So I bring that up because I do think there's a pride in being a local developer and caring because you drive by the place you built. I would like to also mention that since we built the place, we were the #1 hotel in the market, and we remain that to this day. finally, the last point I'll make about this is nobody cares more about sound than us because we are the neighbor. So if, it's funny, but it's true.
Can you please be respectful to the speaker? Audience, please, if you will. Please be
So
respectful.
if Kimley Horn goes back and amends their study, we would not want to support proceeding with this project because that would be a Pyrrhic victory for us. This hotel does extremely well, and we're never going to damage our success there in order to build another project next door, especially just take that risk. And frankly, we don't have to. So if the community demands another sound study, we welcome it, and it would be good for my knowledge. Next slide. So these are the things that ultimately we rely on city and their independent consultant to tell us in order to proceed. We've been meeting with the city for a year, and ultimately we have no control over whether this is an addendum, it's an M&D, it's an EIR, and we have to rely on the studies that are generated by the city and its independent consultants. We have no impact, and we cannot control that. We cannot request anything. So when it's told that it's an addendum, it's told to us. So how did a hotel developer decide to go on this crazy adventure? A year ago, I was in school, and we had a visitor in class that was telling us about the growing demand for compute in our core industries. And I have the framework of working in El Segundo. What I remember is that the president of SpaceX has her interviews in the lobby of the AC Hotel. I remember that flying back to LAX, I sat next to an engineer who works at Radiant, who's building mini nuclear reactors 2 doors away from our hotel. So I know there's a context of El Segundo being a sleepy beach town, which it couldn't be further from. It is a Detroit-level manufacturing hub. More than 50% of the space vehicles and objects that are launched from Earth are manufactured in El Segundo. And I took that from El Segundo's website. So why does this project work in El Segundo? If we look at our immediate neighbors, which are Space Force, Boeing, the Aerospace Corporation, and SpaceX, what they use on a daily basis is a massive amount of compute. In order to do their day-to-day operations, they use compute. Specifically for very mission-critical operations, where milliseconds make the difference between success and not success, or failure, it really does matter where your compute is in relation to your users and your applications. They call this latency. And for layman's term, this is your control and speed to your compute. Why this matters in mission critical and for governmental organizations and for advanced manufacturers in the aerospace industry is that they do not want their data traveling long distances to other sites such as Arizona and then coming back because it opens up vulnerabilities in the data that they're transferring and accessing. Now, there is a simple economic reason why this needs to exist here. And it's hard to find it. This thing will cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build. It is on 2 acres when most data centers are on dozens of acres. The only reason that somebody would want to pay to use a facility this expensive is because they have to be next to it. I don't have hundreds of millions of dollars laying around for a vanity project. The users are driving ultimately the reason that this cost is here. If the demand does not exist, it it cannot be built, because the way these things are ultimately financed is through the leases that are signed to the building. If there is no user, that is a local entity that surrounds this, this thing will never be built, and it doesn't even matter. So I wanted to go to the next slide, which shows we actually really wanted to pay attention to the emails and comments that we got, because I personally want to find the things that make me not want to spend time on this, because truthfully, this isn't fun for me. I'd rather be at home with my daughter. So if we go back to this slide, the one on the left is the hundreds of acres of a data center in Texas. That's fields and fields of open generators, fields and fields of data halls, and they have a power plant on site. And the one on the right is an infill location on 2 acres that, and you know, the comment came up 167 feet. I want to break down the floor heights. In order to enclose the generators to reduce emissions and reduce sound, we needed to make sure that the first floor of the building held the generators. So that's the first floor of the generators. And you know, I brought somebody much more knowledgeable than me from Arup, who's the mechanical engineer on this project and who does data centers for a living, and he's available as well. The first floor is 45 feet in height in order to house the generators, in order to mitigate sound and emissions. The next 4 floors are each 22.5 feet in height to house the data halls. This is actually pretty short for a data hall height. And the reason you don't see data centers like this is because it's super expensive to build. Most data centers want to be on large campuses with wide acreage because it's cheaper to build and they're tilt-up boxes. But we are sitting on 2 acres, and we want to make sure that we are the hotel nearby, and I understand what is happening around the data center world. I'm not aloof. I read the news as well. And I want to make sure that we can answer the demands of the public and also of the community. So we made the decision that we would go higher, and so those 45 feet for the generator hall on the first floor, 4 floors of 22.5 feet for the data racks, and then there's an additional mechanical screen, which is not enclosed, but is to cover the chillers and provide additional sound control that we're putting above it. And so the height is including the mechanical screen above the roof, so people at the pedestrian level don't need to see the mechanical equipment, and it mitigates sound. So that's your height breakdown, and it's in the project description. Next slide. These numbers aren't coming from me, like I mentioned. And I brought Arup here as well because I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm not an engineer. I don't build these systems. I have to pay people to tell me how these systems work. And ultimately, this is the number that they put forth to us. We provided actual billing from the city to Arup to show how much water this facility used. And then we paid for Arup and corroborated and sent to Kimley Horn as well to analyze how much water in data center operations the facility would use. And this is the number that they came up with, that there would be 1.5 million gallons of water returned to the city. Now, this is measured. This isn't something that I can tell you is going to happen, and then you can't come back and say, that's not the truth because you bill it. And this is a standard that we have to hold ourselves to. When we go through a CEQA study, what they tell us is that you need to give us the most conservative envelope with the most conservative usage possible, because if you exceed that, then you're in violation of the study. So we gave the most conservative numbers that we could come up with, and that was our mandate to all of our consultants, because the last thing I want to do is come back to the city and say, hey, we need to adjust something because we would need to run a whole new study. So I brought, like I mentioned, Air up here as well to actually go through the equipment and explain how water is used within the chillers, within the closed loop system, and speak at it from an engineer's level, but I wanted to put that number in front of you guys. Rates will go up, and El Segundo has ample power. I brought, oh, will not go up, will not.
Audience,
That's, like I mentioned, I am not putting this information in front of you because I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't work at SoCal Edison, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we had a representative from Edison to be here to answer questions. And I take this information from Edison. I'm not saying rates will not go up and El Segundo has ample power. I'm saying that SoCal Edison has represented that to me, and that is what I'm putting forth to this committee. And we did see, comments in regards to how close our data center is in relation to sensitive receptors. What I wanted to put forth here is the star on this map is our data center. The other purple circles on this map are the other data centers that exist in El Segundo with older equipment, tier 2 generators, not tier 4, not enclosed chilling systems, and show where they are in relation to homes and schools against our site. And the fact is that our site is the furthest from a school or home of any data center in the market. Right next to the kids' soccer field. Right next to the kids' soccer field. Right next to the kids' soccer field.
You can ask the audience to please be respectful.
To chill.
Another thing that we received in the comments was a benchmarking system for responsible data center development. We understand this is not the requirements of the city of El Segundo, but we wanted to measure ourselves against a new standard that was brought forth through the comments. And on power, water, noise, emissions, setback, and appearance, we passed. And all I can say as a developer is that at every single choice, when we had to make a decision of the cheaper or more expensive option, we made the choice for the more expensive option.
Can I quickly ask, do you have 18 slides total?
Oh, no, I wanted to just, if we go to the next slide. Sorry. Okay. I wanted to open the floor to any questions from the committee. I do have an engineer from Arup as well who can explain how we came up with these calculations because they're more intelligible on this subject than me. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from any of the commissioners?
Mine is sort of just foundational. So this is your first data center. How once I'm thinking of this, if I'm looking at you, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So you're a real estate developer, essentially.
Yep.
And so for you, this is a real estate development, but you haven't built or operated a data center. So how does that part work? Like once it gets built, who operates it?
Yeah, so who operates it is going to be determined by the users. So ultimately, who resides in this facility whether it's, and you can imagine who the users are in this community. There will be an operator who they approve and have SLAs with, and they will run the facility.
So it's a you build it and they will come sort of a situation?
No, I don't have $600 million lying around. So the reality of the subject is we need to get this thing to a place where it's entitled, where somebody feels like their money is secure so that they can commit to a lease that will pay for a $600 million build out. $600 million build out that will go to union labor.
It sounds to me like were you approached to start this project?
No. So, listen, I know it sounds crazy, but I really just, I'm curious and I want to create value. And I saw.
Pollute the air, take the water. We need you guys, this is gonna take a really long time as it is. It only gets longer if we have to like stop to shush everybody so we can actually hear his answers.
But you said it was user driven. This whole project started because the neighbors have asked for this, but that's not
No,
the case.
so
That is the case.
I 1 year ago, like I mentioned, I went to something and I understood what's happening in the world of compute. Bill Masori, who's done more entitlements and development in El Segundo and actually helped us with the development at the AC Hotel, reached out to me and he said, you have additional development rights. Do you want to build more hotel rooms? I said, what about data centers? And that's how it started. And we went to the city, and was it an allowable use? Yes. I then reached out to broker contacts of mine at JLL, and I said, is there demand for something like this here? And that's how it just rolls. And frankly, that's where we get to a point where we are speaking to real users in this community who are serious people who actually find this facility important for their operations. And like I mentioned, there's no way this thing gets built unless a local organization or corporation really needs to pay a lot of money to be in this specific location.
Are any of them here today?
No.
In support of your, okay. No. That's the question.
I don't have anything for the applicant, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a total of 54 public comments or speaker cards that were filled up. Everyone's going to be called up in the order that the speaker cards were given to staff.
Okay.
Okay.
And can we call up 3 at a time so that they're queued up, three or 4 at a time so that they're queued up already, so there's not going to be a lot of wait time?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that. So we'll call them up in threes, and then they can speak as is. Again, as mentioned by the chair, if everyone could be respectful, we're here to listen to you and to listen to everyone else, so please. Did you want to limit individuals to a time?
I mean, you could limit the amount of time as well. It's up to you. The total
yeah.
amount of time.
Because it could be a long time. Can we limit it to 1 minute each to each person, or okay? Let's go 2 minutes and please.
For 8 minutes, and he didn't know what he was talking about.
Well,
We're the ones that live there.
Excuse me.
We need to be heard. Well, I guess We need to be heard.
All right.
it's like 3 hours of
Well,
public. You guys let this happen Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5:30 was when we had to get here to see these
Mr.
plans.
Chair, you don't have to. You don't have to allow.
Okay?
Yeah.
You guys slipped this through in the middle of the night on us.
yeah.
There's a kids'
Can we-
soccer field next to this data center. All
you
across
can
America, we are
say your
asking
comments
for this
during your time, please. Okay.
Give us the same respect you do business.
Yes,
Okay.
first
The
individual.
Everyone.
The applicant.
Everyone has to take their turn. If anyone is disruptive in this meeting, we can ask the police officer to remove you, okay? Everyone is going to get a chance to speak. It's up to the commission. They have to make the decision. They have to hear what people are saying. So we really would appreciate if there's no interruptions, no applause, just say your comment. The commission has discretion on to decide how much time they want to allow the speakers to speak. Okay? Let's just make sure that this is orderly and everyone is respectful of each other, okay?
And we want to hear all of you. That's why we're here. Okay, we are going to call 3 people at a time. And
Set the time limit?
No, we'll set it for 2 minutes for now, and we'll see how it goes. If we,
Okay.
if it's all repetitive and saying the same thing, or if you're part of a group and then you just concur and you just want to oppose, that's okay too. That's good as long as we get a sense of, even we get a sense of number of who opposes and who supports, that's good to have as well. If we're getting repeat comments consistently, we may have to rethink the time limit.
And we will interrupt you when you hit your 2 minutes, so you will need to stop. The 3 first individuals I have is Bill Jana, Ron Swanson, and Alex Perez.
Hi, so my question was, with the water, I was just at a meeting with the municipal water district like maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and when I hear closed system, things that have been in the news, that there were bacteria, that it still ends up in the water, and just knowing that the water that's being recycled is planned to go back to aquifers in the San Fernando Valley, it's just this huge concern of it going into our food supply and that sort of stuff. So that was my greatest concern in regards to the water and how much that can be trusted, and also how are these companies being held accountable, like afterwards. I really commend you for the questions that you already asked previously. Afterwards, how are they being held accountable if the noise level is very disturbing or people cannot sleep? I don't know, so many health things happening with that. So that would be my concern, like how will they be held accountable after it's there, if it is there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ron Swanson?
Jasmine, can we, sorry, make sure we get the timers on.
I don't have access to that, but I'm doing it on,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Evening Commission, Ron Swanson, 629 California Street. I'll lighten up for a minute. I haven't seen this many people in this room since Topgolf. Right. I'm just going to say I did go back and read all the letters online. I'm going to ask people to do their research. The misinformation that was out there online in some of these letters, hopefully it was solved tonight. And you can take your questions home and resubmit back to the commission. I've been involved in this city since 1985. Three big projects, Topgolf, which took 7 years, and now it's a blip on the radar screen. You don't even know it's there. And it's a big generation to this town. The other one was MEPS. You don't know the facility's there, but the misinformation from a planning commissioner who was sitting up in that corner said there'd be roving gangs of recruits going through the street. And then with In-N-Out, it was, oh, it's going to create a traffic hazard and all that. Well, what we got out of Topgolf from the developer was a brand new intersection. They threw in an In-N-Out. So take your time, look at all the data you can, and come back. The one thing I truly hate, this is El Segundo, and there is some snide remarks coming through here, some rudeness. That is not a place here, and I'm hoping everybody pays attention to that. Just ask your questions in a professional way, and take your information, go home, and then write another letter to the commission or the council when the time comes about your concerns. So I thank you for allowing me to address you, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Alex Perez?
My name is Alex Perez. I'm from a resident here in El Segundo. Before the proposed data center can proceed, the supporting environmental impact report must be revisited. Upon doing so, it'll become clear that the study is obsolete and at best inadequate. The purpose of any EIR is to inform the public and decision makers on projects' potential environment effects. EA 548 was submitted in connection with the El Segundo Corporate Campus project 25 years ago, and thus is effectively antiquated. It lacks any relevance to the proposed data center today. The report was based on various uses, none of which included a data center. The most relatable intended use appears to be telecommunications web hosting. If this is meant to replace data center, it would be deeply flawed because web hosting is a service that's essentially renting space inside of a data center. The square footage states in the EIR was 65,000 square feet for web hosting. Meanwhile, the data center plans are for 230,000 square feet, which once again makes it irrelevant, the original report. Experts suggest, at a minimum, a safe distance between a data center and schools should be 0.6 miles. A quick online search indicates that a straight line distance between the site and Weisman School is 0.1 to 0.5 miles, which is within the hazardous zone. EA 548 is essentially a wrong document to support this project. It was written 25 years ago for a completely different development, and it never once mentioned data center. The building and its use nearly quadruples the size of the report originally intended, and technology today looks nothing like what it did back in 2001. Water use, energy demand, heat generation have changed dramatically. Regarding the triggers for a supplemental EIR, I find it laughable that the representatives from Kimley Horn say
That's 2 minutes.
Finish your thought.
The triggers that are in place is substantial changes to the project. The fact that no data center was mentioned in the original EIR and it is today says that alone is enough to trigger for a new supplemental report. Substantial changes to the project, new information that couldn't be known, that wasn't known then, today. Again, technology. All this calls for a supplemental EIR. Thank you.
The next 3 speakers are Lang Yu, Owen Fithgon, and Danielle Booth. Lang Yu.
Jasmine, can you give them a 10-second warning?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's making it harder for me.
It's okay.
Hi, my name's Lang Yu. I'm nearby in Redondo Beach. I'm here to voice opposition to the data center, primarily on societal impacts. So once it's built, like whatever jobs or income it rolls in, it's not going to be offset by the jobs that the machine takes over and takes away from regular people. And furthermore, I mean, it's right by a metro station. I mean, SB 79 says you could probably maybe build affordable housing, help address the or lack of affordable housing in the state. And also on the environmental front, I really have a hard time taking Edison for its word. I mean, they burned down Altadena, so like whatever energy will be used, I mean, how do we, I don't take any confidence that it won't affect people's rates in the end, and yeah, thanks.
Hello, I'm here in opposition of the data center. My name is Owen. I'm a working class 22-year-old, and I just want to be able to afford housing. This site is SB 79 eligible because it is next to a train station, a great site for housing because it is next to jobs, high-quality transit, and a school. As it was a hotel before, it would not be difficult to convert into housing. We should be pushing for housing, not data centers. This data center will use in one day the amount of energy it takes to power 40,000 homes. That's over double the population of El Segundo. Around 15 to 20% of all South Bay drivers drive electric vehicles. Most people make this switch to electric to make their lives more affordable, especially with gas prices right now. Data centers have been proven to double the electricity bills in places they have been put up. That means you are increasing all of our bills here, and this will affect every business and homeowner in the area, with 20% of the electric vehicle owners being affected the worst. Please take the community into account and make the right decision in rejecting the construction of the data center and stop selling our city out to billionaires and trillionaires. Thank you.
Danielle?
Good evening. My name is Danielle Bussey. I'm an El Segundo resident and a neighbor. I'm also a small business owner. We're a homeowner. We've been in El Segundo for a long time, and I work for the Wiseburn School District. So I have a few questions. During heat waves, the electrical drain, who's going to be prioritized? The data centers or the residents? Because I'm hearing with other areas, the residents are told to find their own energy sources. The next thing I'd like to know, they spent so much money building this or proposing to build this. Why are renewable energy sources not being considered for it? It's a huge concern for me. I have the concern about the water being recycled and the bacteria in the water as well. You can read up on that. Off-gassing, I absolutely think we should be investigating the off-gassing of greenhouse gases. How are residents going to report issues once the project is completed is an issue for me. And then I too was dissatisfied with the sound composite approach. I think we need to know about decibels. I think we need to know about vibrations. The sound emitted from data centers has been mind-bending, a constant roar that vibrates constantly and causes heart racing, lack of sleep, frequent headaches, and inner ear vibrations penetrating triple-paned windows in times. We did talk about the distance to schools. I want to say not as the crow flies, but 0.9 miles driving to Da Vinci High School is the distance. And as I think Alex mentioned, it's even shorter as the crow flies. So we're impacting schools, we're impacting people. I'm really concerned and definitely against
10
this.
seconds.
I will say after the presentation by 8 Form, I am shocked and less confident in their ability to pull it off. So thank you.
The next three speakers are Tess Ramson, Matthew Summerlin, and Kai Albertson.
Hi, my name's Tessie Rasmussen. I'm a resident of El Segundo. Everybody's made really good points. I won't belabor them, but I will say in 2002, Apple released the first iPod. iRobot debuted the Roomba, and DVDs were cool. Everyone had them, right, in the back of their car? Blackberries ruled the world. Wi-Fi was just being introduced, and data centers were not in the EIR. I think a 24-year-old document really isn't the best vehicle to be basing this analysis on. I think a telecommunications web hosting center in 2002 was a very different idea than what we're seeing in 2026. And just under 60,000 gross square feet for that category is a really different development than the 400% increase today. So while I don't think this is the right location for a data center, if the city is serious about developing one in El Segundo, please do it properly through a full environmental report and be transparent about the impacts to our community, including the utilities. Thank you very much.
Hi, City Council. It's incredible the pace that this council will move at when it comes to approving and building a data center using an EIR addendum from 2 decades ago. It's incredible that the same City Council asked for a 10-month moratorium on building of new multifamily units. El Segundo and the beach cities need affordable housing for those who work to make your lives comfortable. We bring you your drinks. We bag your groceries. We are there to work for you all, but you are not here to work for us. Instead, you're here to work for billionaires and to build a data center. These data centers are being used by ICE across America to target our hardest working people in this country, and you all approving that says that's okay. And for the person speaking about rudeness, our president is alleged to rape children, and you all are tone policing people because you are working with billionaires and technology companies that are poisoning our communities, and we have a right to be mad about that. We have a right to be pissed. We have a right to be upset about all of our representatives being bought by money while we work hard for nothing. They are poisoning our communities. They are poisoning the minds of the youth, and you're allowing them to potentially build a data center next to a child's soccer field. A child's soccer field. On top of that, you guys, They are sitting here trying to use CEQA and say that the city's own numbers contradicts its conclusion. This addendum relies on a test. Did anything change enough to cause new or worse environmental study effects than the ER study happened in 2002? Your own slide said yes. This hotel comparison project used about 1,600 kilowatts per day. The data center will use approximately 1.2 million kilowatts per day, nearly 750 times more. That's not a minor variation within an already studied range. It's a different category of impact. Continuous industrial power draw, a dedicated 66 kilovolt substation, new cooling infrastructure, none of which a 2000 study of a hotel scale energy could have analyzed because none of the existed in the project that was reviewed. You all stop letting them poison our communities because we are going to get loud.
We have Kay Albertson, followed by Nancy Cobb. Kay Albertson, followed by Nancy Cobb.
Hi, all. I am not going to be able to follow that up, but I am an El Segundo resident. I find the comparisons of this data center to the hotel in what we witnessed on the screen rather frustrating, as in, this is an entirely different kind of project. A hotel uses water and electricity because people need water and electricity. People need utilities. A data center is, as we have had it described, a box with windows and a lot of environmental concerns. I simply don't wish for our community members to subsidize the energy consumption of billion-dollar companies. I do not want the city to be degraded further by issues of noise pollution, cost of living, water shortages, and heat. The long-term cost of this project will be much greater than whatever they're willing to bribe the city with. Please do not betray the trust placed in you by the residents of El Segundo. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Nancy Cobb, followed by Emily Berry. Nancy Cobb, followed by Emily Berry.
How's that? I'm Nancy Cobb. I'm a resident of El Segundo. I'm a former teacher and former school board member, and I'm really concerned about the children in the schools. Even though it seems like El Segundo doesn't have any schools over there, you know, that's the Weisburn district, and we also have a lot of private schools over there. In fact, I was going through and I counted at least 13 schools or childcare centers or athletic centers on the other side of town. And I think that that's one of the things we have to consider, because it is a change. Some things have changed. We have more data centers than we did that many years ago, 2002, and we have a lot more students who are over there all day, every day. I counted 6 child care centers. My grandchildren went to one of those. I counted 2 high schools. I counted a middle school, an elementary school. They're all less than a mile from this proposed data center. So I think that we have to go back and consider the children. And since the owner's willing to consider, let's have a standalone pediatric health risk assessment. Let's have weighted noise boundary evaluations. Let's have low-emission clean energy backup alternatives, and let's have a multi-facility cumulative impact analysis. Thank you.
Next up is Emily Berry, followed by Will Reddy.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Emily Berry. I live in Playa del Rey. I come to El Segundo all the time for breakfast burritos at Jaime's, and I'll tell you what, I breathe the same air there in Playa del Rey, not Manhattan Beach. I'm also a member of the Democratic Socialists of Los Angeles. I'm not sure how this did not trigger an EIR. We had a reminder that in 2002, Apple was just coming about. We all had Blockbuster cards, and there was a hole in the ozone layer back then. The point of data centers is to be up 99.999% of the time. As 8 Forum indicated, there'll be service level contracts. So these diesel generators will be tested. They will emit greenhouse gases. Also in the Baby Executive's presentation, he didn't say what was going to be held within these servers, and it almost sounds like weapons maybe will be held in these data centers. He was mentioning weapons manufacturers, and that worries me that it could be a target with the data that's held in those centers. So what danger will that bring on? Servers don't need to be near transit, as we heard already. I believe the commission is being asked to approve without enough information. What happens if the tenant actually doesn't ever come about, or what if they leave after the substation is up and running? It's important that working families not subsidize private corporations, especially when it comes to electricity and utilities and space near transit. Finally, this bonkers water analysis has me thinking
10 seconds.
that people are being compared to machines. The people that were staying in this hotel are probably tourists coming to California or people that are working in El Segundo. Thank you very much.
Next up, Will Reddy, followed by Saran Williams. Okay, so if you guys can hear, please, if you could not clap, it'll make this go faster so we could hear all of you. We hear you. We want to keep hearing all of you, please. So next up, we have Will Reddy, followed by Saran Williams. If you could please line up behind the speaker so that you guys can get going.
Hey there, everyone. Thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to be here with my community, seeing everyone unified in one single purpose. I'll keep it short. I'm not very eloquent, and I think everyone else is putting things much more well than I probably could. One thing I did want to point out is these companies often come into these small towns and they sell you these lies about how much power is going to be used, how loud it's going to be, the water usage. Also, I don't understand how a closed loop system still puts 1.5 million gallons back into the community, but that's something else. But then what they end up doing, and you can look at small towns in Virginia for a case study of this, they told them those generators were only going to be used for emergency situations, and then what do you know, once it was built, they had them going 24/7, and they create loud, high-pitched whining noises that makes it almost unbearable to be within about a mile radius of those centers. It drives property prices down, or excuse me, drives them, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, anyway, love to see you guys. It's a pleasure being here, and have a good rest of your day.
Saran Williams, followed by Catherine Pagtoma. Yoon.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sidon Williams. It's spelled with an R, sounds like a D. And I walked in here with trying to have an open mind, but after what I've heard, I'm even more leaning against this whole thing. I'm concerned about the grid integrity, the power strain on the community. No one here has talked about earthquake problems or fire plans. Think about that big warehouse fire in Boyle Heights. I'm really concerned about the developer has no, or the applicant, I guess, has no customers yet. And then he's going to let them decide how to run the building. And that sounds like mayhem to me. I think that's a key point. I think he should have those before he goes any further here. I think we need an EIR. It's 25 years old, and you've all heard the reasons why, and I agree with them. And I have not heard really what the pros are on this project. I'm hearing a lot of cons, and the pros might be some money back to us, but I'm not really hearing much else. I'm kind of jumping around here. One other thing concerns me about the type of data center it is. It's a co-location, so there's going to be different tenants in that building. And what are the deals that the owner is going to make with the tenants to bring them in, and who's going to manage that, and what are those deals going to impact? How will those deals impact the city? So there's a lot of questions still, and I count on you all to do your job well. Thank you.
Next up, Catherine, followed by Maximum Helwing.
Hi there, my name is Catherine. I'm a South Bay resident, and I'm here to urge you all to reject the proposal to build a data center here. As many people have already said, data centers are known to cause environmental and ecological harm to the surrounding communities, just from the high use of energy alone from these data centers, not to mention the financial impact that these data centers are going to have on our community, who ultimately are going to have to foot the bill for the high electrical and energy cost. And in LA County, we already have to deal with a high cost of living, one of the highest in the nation, and this data center will only compound the crisis for families who are trying to make ends meet. More and more families are having to make the decision of whether we're going to spend our money on groceries or on gas or for our utility bills, and we do not need this data center that's just going to devastate an already struggling working class in the South Bay, sending our utility costs sky high. We've also seen false promises from other data centers in the nation that this will create jobs. But the track records show that this is only true during construction in the beginning, but that the number of full-time jobs at these data centers decreases significantly once the construction is complete and the community is left with this large structure that causes long-term ecological damage and humming noise pollution that will drive people away from this community. I urge you all to listen to the residents of El Segundo and South Bay whose livelihoods are on the line and for the sake of themselves and their families cannot afford to have this data center be built. Thank you.
Next up, Maxwell, followed by Tom Magnum, I believe is the last name.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Maxwell Hoveg. I am 17 years old. I go to El Segundo High School. I've been El Segundo resident my entire life. And I am in complete and strict opposition to this data center. I have seen from videos across the nation of people's water that live next to data centers becoming so polluted that you wouldn't think it comes from a first world nation, but it comes from some third world nation that hasn't been developed. You see noise issues that mean that people can't sleep. You see demolition that involves the cracking of people's houses, especially in Georgia. And all of these issues. And I also looked at some of the plans and the aluminum veneers that they were saying to put in place to help mitigate the noise. As stated by a very premier aluminum manufacturer that manufactures aluminum in China, states that this is actually not one of the premier solutions, that you should investigate other ideas for noise dampening. And when I looked to see more noise dampening solutions, I kind of just came a blank with empty promises of there will be something, but I can't see anything. There's also diesel power. We are in a town, we have a oil refinery, and we also have an airport, an international airport that is incredibly famous. So I don't think we need more diesel pollution in our town. The cost of electricity, as we all know, data centers, what typically happens is they pass that cost on to the consumer, and so your power bills are going to increase. And at a time where the cost of living is so insane that most Americans don't have a savings because they're spending it all on power, I think that I would just simply for that reason we need to cancel it, not everything else. Water pollution, etc. And also, I think a more unique point I'd like to bring up is the fact that this is going to destroy a hotel 2 years before the Olympics is supposed to come to Los Angeles, which is like really close by. And so I feel like that would be a missed opportunity for revenue to potentially have this Hyatt hotel, which I looked up and seems pretty good, filled with people from all across the world to attend the LA Olympics, which would drag in more revenue as opposed to a data center which is just going to sit there. And also, we don't know who's going to be hosting it. It could be Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, or it could be ChatGPT, Anthropic, Meta, or these other companies that don't care about the people and just seek to make profit instead. So I urge you to say no to this data center and deny it. Thank you very much.
We have Tom McGuire, followed by Michelle Darasek.
Evening. Pre-apologies for my rusty public speaking skills. Thank you, council people, for taking this time to hear our words. One point that was brought up that I haven't heard addressed is that this data center has these diesel generators, and that I guess approximately 100,000 gallons of gas would be stored on site to power those diesel generators. And quick number I looked up, that's about the equivalent of like 10 gas stations in that area, in that one location. That seems like an environmental concern to me, at least. It was mentioned, somebody mentioned that I'm not a big fan of socializing costs and privatizing profits, which sounds like this was what this would be. And a lot of the words that I'm hearing are reminding me of the old days of big tobacco, talking about safe cigarettes or clean coal. Like a safe data center that has no environmental impact seems like a real contradiction in terms. My big one that was already addressed, thankfully, by other people is that, as far as I understand, SB 79 does allow for this zoning, this rezoning of this area, which would seem to me to trigger some new studies to turn this into affordable housing, especially with that train station right there. So it seems like the kind of place I would want to live. Wouldn't have to drive to a train station. And especially with the 10-month moratorium that was on the docket yesterday, which I guess is no longer in effect on building of multifamily units, it seems to me more like we need a 10-year moratorium on data centers. Thanks.
Next up, Michelle, followed by Lynn Harvey.
Hello, Michelle. I just want to play you something from Loudoun County, Virginia, the data capital center of the world, their public meeting, and what the resident was explaining this noise to be from 1,200 feet away with a house in between, or building. See if I can get my audio. It's a little alarming.
It's constant. It's 2.8 kilohertz. It's well above anything else you can hear. And it's just...
Was that from your home that you did?
That was 1,200 feet away with another building in the way. Okay. We can hear it on HOA anywhere. We can hear it on the WNOD trail. It's everywhere. So it's not just a low hum. So that sounds like jets taking off from Dulles, but everything else is a high-pitched squeal that just doesn't matter where you are walking around, you'll hear it.
That was their backup. That ran for a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The data centers in Loudoun County are now 260, the size of LA County. Loudoun made mistakes, and I have 9 copies for each of you, one for each, of the information that they're saying are best practices to consider when data centers are trying to be built. So you can review these. The other issue I have is LAX. In the event of a major earthquake, and let's say there's a toxic fire, lithium batteries burn at about 2,000 degrees. El Segundo has 2 fire departments and 45 firefighters. Chevron's not going to help. LAX isn't going to help.
10 seconds.
Also, has anyone done any investigation into the turmoil at LAX for landing and takeoff with thermal plumes?
That's time.
And visibility? And one last thing, it affects birds and butterflies. Say goodbye.
Lynn Harvey, followed by Nancy Johns.
Thanks for letting us speak. We have to choose, I think, between the quality of human life and profits for tech investors here. I agree with 71% of Americans all across the country who do not want data centers in their neighborhoods. The people need to demand, and that's why we're here, demand some agency over our communities and our livelihoods, because this is serious, as people have attested to. And data centers take all our energy, all our water, pollute our communities with noise and toxic waste. I urge you to drop this horrific proposal. The harm it would cause is unacceptable, and it would suck up water, raise energy and water costs locally, and pollute the area within 10 miles of constant round-the-clock noise. Last thing, if it's so great to have a data center in your community, I suggest that the developer takes it up to Rancho Palos Verdes, where there's lots of land. Thank you.
Nancy Johns, followed by Steve Shoemaker. Nancy Johns.
Good evening, Commission, and thank you for your service to El Segundo. Tonight's one of those nights when you get to hear the public speak in great numbers. My name is Nancy Johns, and I'm a lifetime resident of the South Bay and a 34-year resident of El Segundo. I'd like to address the direct logistical disruptions this facility would bring to our public roadways. Paralyzing Nash Road on page 99, the architectural notes on page 100 explicitly state that the standard building maintenance and future generator replacements will be staged on the street and necessitate the complete closure of North Nash Road. Because Nash is a vital commuter artery near LAX, what is the long-term logistical plan for these closures? How long will they last? And how will local traffic be protected? We should not approve a heavy infrastructure project where the basic building upkeep requires gridlocking our public roads. The world has completely changed in the last 25 years since the original EIR was drafted. The electrical grid, air quality constraints, and local development density of 2026 demand a 2026 level review. For the future of our infrastructure, our safety, and our rights to transparent governance, vote no on Resolution 2979 and mandate a brand new environmental impact report considering they didn't even discuss greenhouse
10
gases.
seconds. Steve Shoemaker, followed by Ellie Nemo, not sure. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Shoemaker. My grandparents raised their family here starting in the 40s. I grew up here. I studied software engineering in college. I really question the ability to categorize this as commercial use. Web hosting and telecommunication is a huge stretch for what a data center actually is. They're going to be churning and processing data. It's not a bunch of websites. They're going to be calculating. The servers are going to be running all the time. It'll be like calling a warehouse a factory. They're two separate things. I don't think anyone's actually mentioned the reported noise levels are 70 decibels. You can't sleep. That's permanent damage. Good luck trying to put a child to sleep at that level. For the water contamination concerns, there's reports of the local water supply getting infected with rare bacteria in other cities across the nation. More Perfect Union has reported on that. The perk of union jobs is only for the construction. Once it's there, it will not be there forever once it's done building. Also, is there any guarantee that picture he supplied is actually what it's going to look like? That's a great AI-generated picture, but it seems fake. I don't know, just something to think about. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Eli, followed by John Pickhaver.
Thank you, Planning Commission. I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't have much new to add. Not much informative, to be honest. I think all my fellow El Segundoans have said basically everything that needs to be said about this project. And so I just ask you this one question. Who do you want to listen to? Do you want to listen to the developer? This yuppie kid from Palos Verdes? I get it. I'll be fair to the applicant and everything, but I don't know. I was born and raised in El Segundo. I came back here from Texas after I finished grad school. I live with my parents because I can't afford a place to live. I'm not even against AIs or development more generally. Like, I'm on the fence about it, to be honest. But I just don't like all the loopholes and all the shenanigans that have been done, that the AI Center has been, like, the people who are doing this, I don't really buy them. I don't trust them. If they had been more, compliant with the laws, as you guys have also admitted, I'd be more sympathetic. And I also know that it's so damn hard to build housing in California in general and in El Segundo in specifically, which is why I know it's an M1 or an M2, and that's not technically that's not technically where you can build residential housing. I don't like the prioritization of AI data centers over housing, and I don't think that we should be allowing a, skeevy, I don't think we should do anything, at least until we know who's going to use it, who's going to be the business people who are using it, as opposed to just users. And thank you for your time.
John Pickhaver, followed by Elizabeth Hernandez.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Pickhaver. I also don't have too much to add. I appreciate the members of the public that came out here to speak tonight. I also submitted a written comment, one of 421 people last I checked, to do so, and over 700 pages of public comments published on the city's website. All of which, by the way, by my count, were opposed or approached it with extreme caution or doubt. I think it was very beneficial to have been here for that Tesla conversation before. Initially, I was annoyed because like, oh man, I wish we could just get right to it. But I think it informs a lot of what this body does. And whatever your opinion on data centers or not seems kind of irrelevant based on that discussion. But I really think there are a lot of off-ramps, regardless of how you feel about it, through that environmental impact report, which, as many people pointed out, is nearly 25 years old. And some of the things that were said in the time, or excuse me, that were said when the report was published and since then are irrelevant. For instance, SB 79 went into effect July 1st. The report mentions that it's 500 feet of residential zoning. It's within 0 feet of residential zoning. Now, I don't know if that technically can trigger a new environmental impact report, but it certainly should raise a lot of doubts and concerns to see how to trigger that. I agree with one thing the applicant said, is that he would welcome another sound study. I think we should start there. I think we just really need to slow things down, just because from paying attention to these things, there are the city council above you who have different opinions on this matter. From what I've gathered, I don't know if there's enough votes to advance it. But
10
I hope
seconds.
that this body makes clear tonight a clear statement that would be hard for the council to go another direction. So thank you.
Elizabeth Hernandez up next, followed by Sammy Glazer.
Okay, I'm short. I concur with all the beautiful, lovely people who oppose the way this development is being advanced. It's kind of sneaky to do an addendum instead of a whole new EIR because there's no time for, public hearing, and this is, you need our feedback. It's going to be in our community. Also, just personally, I don't want to be jealous of computers that are right next to the bus stop that goes right to my work. They can't take the bus, and so I don't want to be jealous of them. That's all. Everybody said awesome things.
Sammy Glazer, followed by Lena Martinez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sammy Glazer, and I'm here with Los Angeles Waterkeeper. The Planning Commission should not adopt Resolution 2979 because ultimately the data center project is so substantially different from the previous 2002 corporate campus project that a new EIR should absolutely be required. In terms of the water use claims that were made, they are not supported by the 2002 EIR. Essentially, the addendum simply concludes that the proposed data center wouldn't result in a new significant impact or a substantial increase in the severity of environmental impacts on water. The addendum even goes so far as to say that the project would result in a net decrease in water consumption compared to existing conditions. However, these conclusory statements fail to consider documented evidence that data centers use large amounts of water for cooling. And even though the addendum alleges that the proposed design will utilize a closed loop cooling system and therefore reduce operational water consumption and wastewater generation and discharge on the site, studies actually show that while some cooling systems use less water, this is often done at the cost of increased energy consumption. So it's a give and take there. And since closed loop cooling needs more electricity to run and power plants use vast amounts of water to generate electricity, An increase in grid power demand can cause the data center's ultimate and total water footprint to exceed any purported water saved from the mentioned closed loop system. To finish up here really quick, closed loop system or otherwise, the people of El Segundo really deserve a thorough analysis of substantiated water use claims, especially in the water-stressed region that we all live in. Thank you for your time.
Lena Martinez, followed by Bailey Duarte and Will Becker.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lena Martinez, and I'm with LA Waterkeeper. I agree with a lot of the opposition that has been mentioned so far. For one, the proposed data center project is far too big for an addendum to the 2002 EIR to suffice. An addendum is only allowed for minor changes. The proposed data center would be 230,000 square feet. That's roughly 4 times the size of what the 2002 project allotted. That's a major change from 2002 that warrants new analysis for possible environmental impacts. Also, an electrical substation was never analyzed in 2002. The proposed project is for the construction and operation of a new 5-story 200,000 square foot data center and an electric substation. The substation is a core aspect of that project, but it's missing from the environmental analysis. The 2002 EIR only said that a substation could be needed and that it needs to be studied. However, the addendum relies on analysis that was never conducted in 2002 to say that no new environmental review needs to be done before approving this data center project. If the potential impacts of a substation weren't analyzed in 2002, then they need to be analyzed today. Like others have mentioned, noise, vibration, and air quality are all concerns that weren't fully addressed in the 2002 documents in comparison to the data center project today. Data centers are well-documented sources of constant low-frequency noise and vibration from cooling systems and generators. However, none of these aspects were studied and documented in the 2002 EIR, and the addendum only looks at truck traffic or vehicle traffic as a potential source of daily noise. Not to mention the many backup diesel generators, which of course have been mentioned as well. Thank you for your time.
Bailey Duarte, followed by Will Baker and Michelle Crawford.
My name is Bailey Duarte, and I'm an El Segundo resident and community engagement manager for LA Waterkeeper. I'd like to first echo and raise LA Waterkeeper's concerns as they've raised in their written public comment, but as an El Segundo resident, these are my concerns. Water and energy use, like we've all said today, data centers use a significant amount of water, both directly for cooling and increasingly as a result of the power generation needed to meet their massive energy needs. This cost is simply too high in a water-stressed region like Southern California, and it's a slap in the face to residents who have been told for decades to make conservation a way of life. We faced persistent drought warnings, and now we're seeing the Colorado River on the brink of collapse. And now we're suddenly seeing a wave of approval of data centers that will increase the demand for water and energy in this region. And ratepayers will be expected to see increases in their bills as the region invests in badly needed water infrastructure projects. Bringing a data center to El Segundo could drive up at water and energy costs, and our residents and small businesses will feel this the most. I love downtown El Segundo. It's vibrant with local businesses, and a data center could risk that. We've talked about noise pollution. To give a personal story, as a resident of an older apartment building in town, I and the 30 or so other people in my building, including pets and babies, don't have the luxury of multi-paned windows like many in town. A data center would expose us to increased levels of noise pollution, which has increasingly shown to have negative health impacts. A data center would make this even worse. And jobs and community, we've talked about how the hotel operates currently, has more jobs and more diversity of jobs than a proposed data center. And the hotel has occupations like management and operations, and a data center would drastically reduce this role. In April, I attended a cooking class at this hotel, which seems a little random to say, but the cooking class left me feeling restored and fulfilled during a particularly tough time, and I left with a new skill. Community building doesn't often happen at hotels, but it did here, and it won't happen at that data center. Connecting with neighbors over handmade gnocchi is a better use of space in El Segundo, and a better example of the El Segundo that I want to live in than a data center that would jeopardize my fellow neighbors' quality of life. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this comment on the data center project.
Will Becker, followed by Michelle Crawford.
Hi, my name is Will Becker. I've been a business and systems analyst for over 20 years. I'm very familiar with data centers. I teach AI at DirecTV. This is something that I happen to know a little bit about, and I've been curious why there have been a lot of misconceptions, some of which I think might even be intentionally misleading. If there's one thing that you come away from with what I have to say, it's that this is not a data center, this is an AI data center. Traditional data centers use between 50 and 100 watts per square foot. This data center is going to use over 215. You have to do a like-for-like comparison, and that also includes your sound emissions. We're not talking about another Teradata or any of the other data centers that exist in El Segundo. Those are fine. Those are office buildings. This is different. If I had time, I could talk to you about the differences between CPU compute and GPU compute data centers, but I don't. The one thing that I do want to stress is that the sound needs to be reevaluated. Sound Plan uses industry standards A weighting, which does not account for the low frequency bass, hum, and vibration that comes from compressors, fan vibration, etc. You need to do an A weighting, C weighting, and linear Z weighting comparative analysis in order to understand both the high frequency and low frequency emissions, because low frequency emissions are penetrative. No number of panes can do anything about that. They can penetrate walls and buildings. The low level hum will be persistent. Additionally, 29 air chillers are going to release up to 60 megawatts of pure heat energy into the environment running at full capacity, meaning within 200 feet of the property line, the ambient temperature will increase by up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you.
Michelle Crawford, followed by Magena Tewksbury.
Good afternoon or good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address, well, this pivotal issue with very long-term effects. I understand the need for data centers. I just question if this is the right place for a data center. You're not just looking at El Segundo residents, which have been wonderful to hear, and their points are so well taken, but this will impact surrounding communities. This will impact surrounding school districts, which means surrounding students. You're not just looking at El Segundo Unified, you're looking at Hawthorne, you're looking at Centinela, you're looking at Wiseburn, which is the closest of the school districts, I believe, to this data center. You're looking at a recreation center where kids, how often do you go by and you don't see kids playing on that soccer field? And down the other side is Da Vinci High School. You're looking at kids that don't leave the area and go to work during the day. They're going to be the ones that are hearing these decibels that have not been factually reported yet. In my research, and I just heard 215, I read that between 30 to 100 decibels is what's normally utilized by a data center. Well, it's said that once you get to 85 decibels, you're in dangerous shape. Your hearing loss is pretty much a standard loss at that point, I should say. You've got insomnia, you've got decreased quality of life, you've got the light pollution, not only the noise pollution, and you've got the water pollution. So when we're looking at water pollution, noise pollution, light pollution, how can we honestly proceed forward knowing that we're doing this to our beloved communities, our families, our students? Thank you for considering this important
Magena Tewksbury, followed by Robbie Sherkan. Sure. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident of El Segundo, and I agree with many of the points the other residents and business owners have brought regarding the information that we don't yet have on the impacts that this data center will have and the questions we still have that I believe should be answered before we can understand the impact it will have. I just wanted to add one additional thing to try not to repeat what other people have said, and that is to consider the opportunity cost of this data center. This is valuable land, and I believe there are many more beneficial uses for it. Other people have already mentioned affordable housing. If you don't want to replace the EIR, something like an office building or retail would provide many more jobs than are currently being expected to be provided by the data center, which is expecting only 50 jobs once it's completed, which is far fewer than could be provided by something of similar size. So in addition to the environmental effects, the community really won't be getting that kind of employment benefit, and it really seems like it's mostly consequences for us rather than benefits, because we haven't really been shown any financial benefit, certainly, of having a data center in our town. So thank you for your time.
Robbie, followed by Kathy Hudspeth.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I want to touch on something that hasn't been touched on too much, at least yet. Some of you have mentioned not knowing too much about how the acoustics and all the sound stuff works on this, and I want to address that very specifically. A lot of the danger, the specific measurable health impacts come from what's called infrasound. Infrasound basically means sound that is unable to be heard by human beings in most cases. So this is below the 20 hertz range. 20 hertz basically means 20 oscillations per second. So 20 push and pulls of air pressure per second. When we have specific studies, that have looked in this that have, to quote specifically Miriam Daston et al., published in 2026, the hour of exposure to infrasound at 2.1 hertz or 4.1 hertz in healthy volunteers resulted in an increase in systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and an increase in heart rate was generally observed. Discomfort, headache, ear pressure, and fatigue were also reported by participants. In an early study, Mahler et al. Observed no cardiovascular changes when subjects were exposed to short-term near-threshold levels. However, annoyance and sensations of ear pressure were common. This also has not been studied super-duper thoroughly, but some studies have actually exposed human heart tissue to infrasound and have showed significant detrimental effects to human heart function. I would like this to be considered in some way, because also
10
infrasound
seconds.
is incredibly hard to block. If you guys remember the whole Technofest last summer, a few years ago in Inglewood, it's going to
Time.
travel a lot farther than that because it's a lot lower. Thank you very much.
Kathy, followed by, I believe it's Michael or Michelle Lipsy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hudspeth Sharon. I'm a 24-year resident of El Segundo. When my husband and I were looking to upgrade from our condo on the west side of town, we chose to stay in El Segundo because of the quality of life here. Our current house is less than a mile from this proposed data center. And I repeat the concerns that my son just relayed about infrasound, and I would remind people of the techno dance. I don't want to call it fiasco, but it was very disturbing several years ago. I do appreciate the Commission's questions so far regarding the environmental concerns about greenhouse gases and sound, and I would urge you to continue to follow up on those questions and make sure that they are thoroughly answered before moving forward with this project. Thank you.
We have Michael, followed by Aileen Duffy.
How's it going? So I actually have built many data centers in my 30-year career. I've also consulted for hotels, and I would not want somebody building a hotel to build their first data center in El Segundo. And the fellow who talked about the requirements for an AI data center versus a web hosting facility in 2002, they are dramatically different. They are fundamentally, based on the laws of physics, different in ways that are specifically measurable with math. For example, the business use of that site was estimated in the 10 to 15 megawatt capacity. The amount of heat generated by a 10 to 15 megawatt capacity site is vastly lower than that of a 50 megawatt capacity site. Where is that heat going to go? Campus El Segundo will no longer be usable if we allow this data center to be built where it's proposed, because, like the fellow before me said, 10 to 15 degrees hotter because of this data center, most likely. That being said, there are other things that I'm a little disappointed that the city hasn't already looked at, or if they have, they haven't mentioned to any of these people or in any of the other public comments. And that's what this fellow over here mentioned earlier tonight, is that 444 Nash is very similar. 444 Nash has been updated multiple times throughout the years. I think it was built originally in 2008 based on a similar study. And each time it's been updated, it's had a mitigating study to prove that it's okay to continue doing upgrades to it. So an EIR here is not only reasonable, at least a mitigating study should be done to show the differences that are fundamental. And anybody who is a CEQA analyst would say that a 50 megawatt site is fundamentally, mathematically different than a 10 to 15 megawatt site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aileen Duffy, followed by Reg Christian.
Jasmine, sorry, real quick. Can I ask how many speakers we have left?
Aileen is her 33rd speaker out of, we have 59.
Okay.
Yes? Can we reduce the time to a minute 30 to start getting these? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think it will take a long
All right,
time.
let me know when I start. Now?
No, hold on. You're good.
Okay. Hello, my name is Eileen Duffy Urquizo, and I live in the Holly Glen neighborhood of the city of Hawthorne. Holly Glen is bound by Aviation Boulevard to the west, Rosecrans, and El Segundo Boulevard to the south and north. We are the missing piece of the puzzle that has been not been mentioned tonight. Holly Glen and Del Aire are the communities that abut the eastern end of El Segundo. They contain 3,700 homes. So there's been mention of soccer fields and schools, but there's also 3,700 homes that are actually closer to this proposed site than many of the residential areas of El Segundo that are west of Sepulveda. So just to continue, Holly Glen and Del Aire, sorry, are the home of many working families, a number of whom are first-generation homeowners and their families. We have our little slice of the American dream, and our hearts are full at the thought of passing on generational wealth to our children one day in the form of our homes. To protect this precious gift, we have to keep our eye on the industrial area of El Segundo, right at our neighborhood's edge.
10
We
seconds.
we don't have a say or a vote in what El Segundo does, but we are going to bear the impact of your decision. We have questions. Were these homes even considered in the addendum study? And what impacts in terms of particulate matter and greenhouse gases are we going to have impacted?
That's time.
That's the end. Thank you.
We have Rhea, followed by Annie Goldstein.
Hello, I'm Rhea Christian, and I just wanted to point out something that was very quickly just glossed over, is there was mentions of especially one of the gentlemen just brought up was mitigating studies for when there's changes in development, but it was brought up for a brief second, no one came back to it, that they wanted a by right development. If it's a by right development, there is no mitigating study. If it is approved for zoning and by complying with the EIR, they can do what they want. There's no other oversight as long as they follow those criteria. So they don't need to do mitigating studies. They don't need to come back and be like, hey, we actually exceeded the amount of power that we said we would. Oopsies. And also the fact that we don't know who the users are. As the Edison said, that we would have to foot the bill if there's no one there to actually, the customers that were non-existent. Because they said we needed we said that there was customers, then we found out there weren't. So, like, there's things that were just glossed over that I feel like should be thought about again. Thank you.
Annie Goldstein, followed by Graham Forer.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for your service. We really appreciate it and know you're giving careful consideration to this. I'm an El Segundo resident, and I submitted a thorough objection to the adoption of the EIR addendum for the data center project, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. Just want to focus a little bit on something the consultant skipped over. My understanding is that the threshold question is whether the original EIR retains any informational value as applied to the project now before the agency. It's the first question, she didn't mention it. Even if so, then an addendum as opposed to a supplement or new EIR is only appropriate if there are no substantial changes to either the project or the circumstances that will require major revisions to the EIR or no new information becomes available. As has been abundantly clear, this project is wildly different from what was contemplated in the EIR. One thing I wanted to flag that is so crazy I might have made a mistake, but it seems like the diesel generator's noise is not taken into account at all because it's only for emergency use. But each of the 16 units can be tested for 43 hours a year. That is 688 annual hours, which is 28 24-hour days. So a month a year, the diesel generators can run without there being an emergency, just for testing.
10 seconds.
And I don't see any analysis of that. So myriad reasons this is different. Thank you so much.
Grim, followed by Eric Aglioso.
Hey guys, my name is Grim Fuhrer. I graduated from El Segundo High School class of 2026, and I wanted to share my input and hopefully educate people in this audience about the health effects that this data center could have on people in this town. Not a lot has been talked about. A lot of people have brought up noise pollution and how it can affect people, like kind of saying like how it gives people anxiety. But not only that, kind of anxiety, sleep problems, I accidentally glossed over that, but there are, they also, a lot of these things pose health problems. The greenhouse gases can contribute to cancers, neurological disorders, childhood asthma, and reduced fertility. Guess what is like a block away from this data center? A place where a lot of children go. Maybe not good for the children over there. As all of you know, that the increased demand for data centers across the United States, our country holds about at least most of the data centers globally, accounting for 48% of data centers worldwide. Although data centers are viewed as important to some, there are many negative factors that come with these facilities.
10 seconds.
Especially to our health and well-being. The people of Ashburn, Virginia, report increased anxiety and loss of sleep from the noise pollution created by these data centers. Noise pollution from these centers. Thanks, y'all.
Eric, followed by Jennifer Gage.
Good evening, panel. So I'm just going to save my soapbox for the city council because that's not really what this panel is about. But I think people have shown that there are serious considerations and serious flaws in this EIR report. It's too old. It doesn't take into account the reality of what AI data centers pose to this community. I think for all of us, and something I haven't heard mentioned yet, is that we haven't talked about the long-term stay hotels in the area. While those are meant for people to like stay in for maybe a week or two, studies will show that people do live there long-term and they are essentially residents of the city even if they don't have addresses here. And they would absolutely be impacted by this data center due to noise levels, pollutions, everything that people already talked about. So I'll keep it short and leave my other concerns for a future meeting. Thank you.
Jennifer Gage, followed by Samantha Holman.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gage. I'm a resident of El Segundo. I wasn't necessarily against a data center. I came here with questions, and I did get some answered, but the one that's still sticking for me, which I think you've heard, is I don't think this sound study sound all comprehensive. It should be sound and vibration, and you should see how far the sound is going to travel, and it should be the whole building, not just the coolers on the top. And I would like to know if the customer projection that he has, that he's asking for that many kilowatt hours, if he doesn't meet it, do our rates go up because those kilowatt hours are still built out and we have to fund them? So that's my questions. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Samantha, followed by Dylan Snyder.
Hello, my name is Samantha Holman. I'm a resident of Del Air. By far the greatest danger of artificial intelligence is that people conclude too early that they understand it. You can boast about your CEQA report all you want, but let's be honest, just because it can't accommodate the infrastructure doesn't mean that we should build it. This will only create a disastrous blueprint for unused buildings across the South Bay. I understand that this is considered an El Segundo issue, but in actuality, this is a direct threat to the area of Del Air and Wiseburn. This would be in closer proximity to the homes located near Aviation Boulevard. In fact, I probably live the closest in proximity to this proposed building. However, because we are not El Segundo residents, we were not even notified of this proposed project. I just found out about this 2 days ago. This proposed size of this data center would become a catastrophic eyesore that I would be able to see from my front yard. It is apparent that Del Air and Wiseburn were not considered in the assessment. We already experienced some of the worst light pollution from aerospace and the loudest sound pollution in the South Bay, given the surrounding LAX airport and Hawthorne Airport. Additionally,
10
depending
seconds.
on, not to mention my electricity bill has gone up $100 a month, and Edison cannot explain why. I can't imagine what this would do
Time.
further. Okay, thank you.
Dylan, followed by Michelle Derrick. I believe I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Hi, my name is Dylan Snyder. My notes are kind of jumbled. I have a BA in economics. The first rule is you don't spend more money than you're planning on making. The applicant has been very open about the fact that he spent $600 million on the project, which means he's planning to make an even larger profit when and if he eventually finds a buyer. My parents live in the marina, they have an electric car, and my dad is on a breathing system. I wonder what benefits they will experience compared to the degradation of air quality and increase in energy cost. There was a slide telling us that there would not be an increase in energy cost. I would love a study on that, as well as water use and risk as suggested by the applicant. I'm also concerned why we don't have a greenhouse gas emissions report. I thought the council asked impressive questions regarding if there were real-life examples of similar data centers' noise measurements. I thought the scientists gave a less impressive response when they replied it would be a bit of work to find one. I think the El Segundo community is worth a bit of work, especially when profiteers are expecting to make over $600 million off of them, and I think a new EI study is a good idea. Thank you.
That was you? Yeah, that was me. Oh, okay. Okay. Aria Middleman, followed by Kate Ross.
Oh, gosh. That's fine. It's part of my time. Hi, everyone. How are you? My name's Aria Middleman. I'm a resident of Los Angeles. I don't live here in El Segundo, and I am truly amazed at how dedicated and engaged your community members are. These are your people. These are your constituents. And you have an important decision to make, whether you're going to recommend this to the city council or not. And some of you have been on your phone. Some of you didn't ask questions of the proposal earlier. This is something that is so important to them. It's their livelihoods. It's their children you can hear in the yard outside. It is whether they're going to be healthy, their drinking water is going to be drinkable, it's whether their air is going to be breathable in the future. So I really, really urge you to consider this, regardless of whatever numerical impact there is. These are people's lives that we're talking about. And when we see that you're distracted, when we see that you're divided, it doesn't make us have faith in you. And this is something that is so important to them. I care about this planet. I care about these people. This is our health. And that is not something that we can ever jeopardize. I work with a nonprofit, an environmental nonprofit, and that's really important to me, as well as this planet. There's so much evidence. Why are we comparing this to the emissions of a hotel? You can see data center emissions all over the news. Why are we saying it's the worst Satan that there is? You're saying we're not like other data centers. Are you joking? Anyway, I really, really urge you to think this through. Thank you so much for your time.
Kate Ross, followed by Cicely Chan.
Hello, my name is Kate Ross. I am a permaculture designer. I actually oppose all the AI data centers until we have comprehensive data rights and transparency into third-party data usage, and even more so in this case of a very dishonest environmental assessment that doesn't even include greenhouse gas emissions. First off, I think it's absolutely senseless that a renewable energy source is not a part of this project plan. The Southern California Energy rep did not mention how the additional nearly 50 megawatt hours would be produced and where the resulting emissions will be. And how is there no greenhouse gas emissions report? This data center would consume nearly or roughly 4 times as much energy as a typical solar farm. So how could you even set aside enough space to produce enough clean energy to power it? The developer did actually imply who the customers of this data center would be when he talked about the necessity of proximity to achieve the best latency, and he mentioned Space Force as a potential client. The US government also contracts with many or most of the other aerospace companies in El Segundo, and he said that no expense would be spared. So I'm going to assume that the public will ultimately finance this project at a great cost. It sounds like this project will be totally untethered to any environmental priorities because it will presumably be in service of the military-industrial complex. This is already a pollution-heavy zone right by the airport. We can't compare the impacts to a hotel because a hotel actually houses people. And then does the closed-loop water ring accumulate toxins, and how are they filtered out? How often does that water need to be replaced? There are just so many concerns that I have that I don't even have time to bring up. But thank you for your consideration to oppose this project.
Cicely Chan, followed by Nina.
Excuse me. We're going to go through the public comment list, and perhaps at the end. I'm sorry. Wait. Okay, then if you're saying what do you think you're saying, you're withdrawing the application? I'm withdrawing the application. It doesn't need to go to vote. Okay. My intention for this, I promise you, was not like to harm anyone.
Guys, I've heard the community loud and clear. They've made their voice very present here, and my intention isn't to put anybody through any mental or physical harm. And I just want to save everybody the rest of the night. We're going to be withdrawing the application. We're not going to be moving forward with the data center.
Thank you. So I guess procedurally, do we have to listen to the rest of the comments? And do we have to have a motion?
This is a little unprecedented.
Well,
motion to allow the withdrawing.
Well, I guess after hearing that, does the commission wish to continue listening? I guess open
if
it up.
anyone, I mean, people filled out speaker cards. I suppose if someone wants to speak, maybe they could let the commission know. But if no one wants to speak, then you could probably close the public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were on number 44 out of 59.
I mean, not everyone
Yeah.
who filled out a speaker card has
Yeah.
to speak, but if people feel strongly about it, it's up to the chair too, so it's up to the commission.
Is anyone compelled to make any more comments on this topic that would sway the decision? Did you submit a speaker card? Okay, go ahead.
Go for it.
You already spoke, right?
Yeah, he did.
Hello, my name is Oscar Zamora. I'm a resident of South Bay. And I kind of want to zoom out a little bit and talk about how this is something that we have to deal with when our economic systems are designed for profit and not to meet people's needs. Now, more than ever, do we need a socialist reconstruction in this country to finally meet people's needs. This data center was proposed to withdraw more energy than 40,000 homes. That's 3 times the energy that the entire population uses every single day. So, like, yeah, people over profit. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it through. It seems like if the applicant withdrew the application, there's really nothing for the Planning Commission to consider, so I think it's appropriate to close public hearing. And there's nothing pending before the Planning Commission at this point. The item has been withdrawn by the applicant, so there's nothing before the Planning Commission to consider. That's my recommendation.
Can I ask a procedural question? Yeah. That was more or less my question. I mean, the statement here made everyone very happy, but I don't know that it's binding. So what would happen if they do not withdraw their application? Like what happens next? Does it expire? Where does it sit on a desk? Like what happens from here?
Yeah, the application does have an expiration date. I don't know the time frame off the top of my head. Is it 6 months for planning entitlements?
Well, I mean, it is kind of a quandary, but no, ultimately, it's a withdrawn application. To City Attorney's point, there's no nothing to act on. Now, whether someone can come back and refile, I mean, anyone can refile an application for whatever the property owner wishes to do, whether it be housing, whether it be data center, whether it be a factory. You know, we cannot prevent someone from submitting an application. And even if it's another data center, then we'd have to reevaluate that. And, you know, I mean, obviously they know the risks.
So
if they wanted to resubmit for another data center.
So that verbal statement is enough to withdraw an application? Like
We would ask for something in writing.
You would want something in writing?
Yes, we'd
So
ask
if
for
something in
follow-up.
writing, they have 6 months? They have time to do that?
I'm trying to figure out what you mean by the 6 months.
Well, I heard.
I don't know. I thought the entitlement entitlement applications expire after 6 months.
In terms if there's no movement or
Yeah, if he
yes,
doesn't
yes, then
formally-
we administratively withdraw it ourselves after 6 months of no one doing anything with it.
Okay.
So procedurally, do we still need to vote? Like,
No.
Not at this time.
so it will not be on the city council
That's
agenda?
correct.
right.
Yeah, if the
Because it did
applicant
not
withdrew
clear
it,
Planning Commission.
it is not going to proceed. So there's nothing for the Planning Commission to do, and it will not go to the City Council because the applicant verbally withdrew it. We will ask for something in writing. If the applicant were to reapply in a future date, staff would evaluate it. It would have to be another notice public hearing. But the applicant verbally told us, again, this is unprecedented, so this is not something that normally happens. But yeah, there's nothing pending before the Planning Commission. So I think it's appropriate to close public hearing, and the Planning Commission can move on to your other agenda items.
I think specific questions can be answered offline or after the meeting. We still have the procedural stuff to go through. So, I don't know if it's, no.
Chair, is there a question that the commission has?
Yeah, is this withdrawal, is it locked in for 6 months?
No.
I believe
If
is the
the
question.
applicant withdraws the application, then that's it.
Okay, but if they don't do anything in 6 months, it's.
I need to verify the 6 month time frame, but if there's no activity on the application, then there is an expiration date. But I do need to verify that actual time frame. I'm happy to we're happy to post something on the website once we figure that date out where the project information is so that people can find it. And I'll advise the commission as well. But if they follow through with their verbal withdrawal this evening with a written withdrawal, then that will essentially kill the application.
Okay, sounds good.
That was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
procedural question. So it was a verbal withdrawal, but it sounds to me like if he changes his mind or the powers that be around him say, what did you do? He still, in order to renew that application, he'd have to come back through planning commission.
That's
So
correct.
I think for our purposes tonight, procedurally, we accept the verbal withdrawal, we close public comment and move on with our agenda, but I don't think there's anything else. So, I mean, it's told for now. If he comes back, you all know where to find us.
And with that, I guess we close this item. And
Close public comment, and then.
oh yeah, we close public comment on this item, and we will close the item with no required action.
New business, new business.
Moving on to the next. There's no new business, no unfinished business. Reports from the community development director.
Michael, any reports?
Do you have a report?
Give the room a minute to quiet down.
For those of you leaving, you're missing the exciting parts of the meeting. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was wild. Yeah, you can. Yeah. My strategy was.
It's been a while.
Members of the public, if you can exit the room, we're trying to finish the meeting here, please.
I mean, technically, as people say, people see this man. He's not the only person in this group. People, are you man? What are you doing? You know. That might be just a strategy.
I'm sorry, Chair, I missed where we are at.
So we are at reports from the community development director.
Okay, I have no reports this
Okay.
evening.
Reports from many commissioners.
Welcome back, Melissa.
Yes. I'm not going to be here for the next planning commission meeting on the 23rd, so I just want to make sure there's still quorum here, and I think Mario might be out as well.
Yeah, same here. I will be here on July 20, 23rd.
But the rest of you will.
Yes, thank you for informing us. So on the next agenda, or the next meeting, we have a couple, we have another large project as well coming before you.
Is it the
and we'll
wave
get
pool?
the packet out. It is the Surf Club Wave
Okay.
Pool, yes.
I'll have to check my schedule, but I'm pretty sure I'm open, but I'll let you know sooner rather than later.
Are you around?
This is maybe not the forum for it, but I cannot not acknowledge the passing of Max Hale, who was an outstanding water polo player in our community, and he was in Army Ranger training when he passed away. I know his family very well, and I know City Council guaranteed to take a moment of silence, but I know it was in the El Segundo Herald today as well, so I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Max Hale for his service to our school and community and our country.
Thank you. Reports from the city attorney?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
With that, we adjourn the meeting. Thank you.